Hello there. Hello there. It's Marcia Weeks, and you're watching the Marcia Week Show. And we're coming to you live at 3 p.m. in the middle of the day. But this is December 31st, and it is the final day in the year. It is the final day in the year, December 31st. They say it's Old Year's Day, and then we go into Old Year's Night. I don't know what you call it where you're from, but it is the final day, the very final day in the year. And it is wonderful. We're live. We can touch ourselves, right? Yeah, we are very much alive, and my camera is sticking, and I don't know why that is so. I am not sure why that is so, why I am sticking today in the middle of the day. That shouldn't be. But I'm hoping that you can actually see me. I see people are on already. Great. Thank you for joining. We know that you don't expect us to be on at 3 o'clock in the middle of the day. But this is so important what is happening today, that, I believe that it's important for us to come on. I see Miss McLean has joined us, and I think it's so fitting. It is the final show in this year, and I want to just review with you all my wonderful, wonderful opposition. That it was on this show that we formalized the opposition. The opposition was formalized on this show. Yes, hi, Oswald Newton. Those of you at work, if you're allowed to, only if you're allowed to, you can make sure that you turn the Marcia Week Show is on. If you're cleaning the house, you can put the Marcia Week Show on. You're cooking, you can put the Marcia Week Show on. This morning, I was in the garden. We were transplanting um, bananas, buffets, and plantains. Okay, and we were transplanting these. We transplanted over 25 of them. And you know what we were listening to? The Marcia Week Show. We were listening to the Marcia Week Show in the garden. Yes, and we just want good day, good day. I have to say good day. Oswald is in the house. Oswald, and there is Wayne Mac Austin, and Gelviz is in the house. So listen, guys, welcome, 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 and thank you all. I know you wouldn't let me be on here by myself, so I'm glad that you're all on. But what I want to say is that it has been such an amazing year, and I don't know if Miss McLean is ready to come on, that we could chat a little bit. Give me the thumbs up, Miss McLean, if you're ready to come on. Yes, not yet. I don't think she's ready just yet. But I want to talk about what had happened since we came on here the last day in July. Okay, today is the last day in December. And since we've been on Anderson, Happy New Year, Nigel, Gelbiz, Wayne Austin, Oswald Newton, um, since we've been on, yes, since we've been on, I'm getting distracted. Joyanne, Faith, everybody, I see Lumumba is telling me he's going to come on too, because we've got to take a little time to celebrate. I think Miss McLean is on, and I want her to be here when I'm talking
Hi.
about this, because she's instrumental in making this happen. If it seems I'm a little slow today, please, for some reason the internet seems to be slow today. Good afternoon. I can't say good evening. Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon. How are you?
I am lovely. I love the painting you have there in the background.
That's to give us some shade because it's so bright. So those are
Yes.
those are some paintings. The two main ones are paintings I got from my uncle, my deceased uncle now. He used to be a seaman, and he got those in Kenya or something, and on it says 77. Same artist, but back in 1977. So I treasure them. So I'm sharing it with you.
Wow, they're beautiful. I know I pick it up right away. You know, I'm into art, so I pick it up right away.
Yeah,
That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
thanks. I had to
Well,
shift my location because you won't see me. So much light is coming through the window
too
that
much
I usually
light.
sit
Yes,
in front of. So
yes. Well, you know, I am here and I'm seeing all these people who are coming on, and I'm remembering Miss McLean, July, that last Sunday in July, when
yes,
a certain person called me. I don't know if I can call that person's name. Can I call that person's name?
sure, sure, sure,
Okay.
sure.
I want to say, I don't want to put anybody in trouble, but I told you all the story, and I want to say it again today, guys. Give me, I know you heard it, some of you heard it before, but I want to say it again. And for us to remember, so when they're telling you all of these stories about the Marcia Week show and about Marcia Weeks, you will know what the truth is. But I remember, Miss McLean, I was laying down in my couch, and after telling my husband that I had nothing to do with anything on the NIS, in fact, I told him I'm just going to go on my program once a day at once a week, Wednesdays 1 o'clock, and I'm just going to talk about, things that happen in Africa, etc. I'm done with Barbados. That's what I told him. I said I'm tired. The people are not interested. I'm tired. And so and then you called me. That was Saturday evening, and Sunday you called me and you said to me, Marcia, are you on today? I said, no, I'm not on today. I'm on Wednesday. And you said to me, Marcia, would you mind you mind if we use your platform, because something is happening and I would like for the Barbadian people to be alerted about it. And you said it's about NIS, and I said I don't know anything about it. Trying to cop out. I'm too respectful. I don't want to. I'm trying to cop out. I miss diplomacy. So I say to you, I said I don't know anything, but it's true. I don't know anything about it. But you know me, I would have gone to learn about it if I wanted to. And you said to me, "Oh well, you don't have to say anything. Just set up the platform." That was a trick. You said set up the
Well, I
platform,
did promise to
and
speak, and I
and I
did.
said, "Who's gonna come on?" You said you will come on, and you said, "Guess what? You could call Caswell, and he might come on as well because this is something that matters to him, right?" And just let me say hi, Sir Alfred from Brooklyn. Good to see you. Pete Way, 36, Colin Clark. These people came on while we were talking here. And
Mhm.
I just want to give them some love today. All the opposition, give them some love today. But I came on, that was the last day in July. And here we are,
August, September,
literally
October, November, December. 5 months later.
5 months later. Oh, it's not.
Last of July,
September,
August, September, October,
August,
November, December.
5 months.
August, September,
Yes.
October, November, December. Yeah.
Thank you very
Counting
much.
on my fingers as I used to do at primary school. And
Yes.
we didn't
5 months, 5 months later. And we have to get my little book here because I've accustomed to be writing in this book. Apart from being thoroughly educated about issues in Barbados, me personally, Miss McLean, we have through this platform organized 7 marches. Never been done in Barbados, but in the history of Barbados, that many marches in 1 year. And we didn't count the marches that through Watch Out My Children I was involved in with our team before that. But let's just count in the last 5 months.
Okay.
In the last 5 months, and it's good for us, Miss McLean, to take a look at this. In the last 5 months, we've had 7 marches that was organized by the opposition, by the people on this platform through the Marcia Week show. We have had 96, approximately 96
Sessions.
to 100 shows
Yep.
in 5 months.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You hearing this, Galvis?
You know what that says, Marcia? And to all our listeners and those who will join and those who will listen later, I have to say that Marcia Weeks has a spirit of service, and that's important. You know, I think that you not only recognize the importance of advocacy, of sharing, you know, of your time and energies, because nobody's paying you for this. Nobody advertises on this program. um, you sit down and you have to prepare for all of this at the same time trying to run your school and all of these things. And I think that particularly in the climate that we are facing now, and you were very careful to say you didn't want to make it a partisan program, as is the opposition, but not a political party or a spokesperson for a political party. I always say when I'm ready that yes, I cannot divorce myself from the politics of a political party because I was a minister of government, um, and I support a political party. But I would also say to you that when I come here, and not to you, you know me and you know how I approach things. When I come here, it is not about being partisan. It is about dealing with political issues because a lot of people confuse partisan politics and things political. Issues relating to the government and the governance of the country fall in the realm of politics. If I came here to sing the praises or to condemn the government simply because I was a member of the opposing party, that would be partisan. But at the end of the day, there's a saying, to whom much is given, much is
Mhm.
expected. I have benefited from what this country has been able to offer me. I tell people that my parents could only give me their blessings. And this is something that we're going to tackle later on. There's no, for most of persons that look like you and me, there's no material wealth that would have been passed on, but certain values. And I come from a family, and I would say of service. You might have heard about him. He's left this country now. He's left this earth rather. 23 years and 7 months. No, well, 23 years. May would have been 23 years. That's my brother Wendell. You would hear people talk about him.
Yes.
But basically, what I got as his little sister and the ninth of 11 children of my parents was that we needed to have a conscience and a commitment to Barbados. I remember saying this when we had Kimar session, that my brother said to his wife when he asked her to marry him that Barbados came first. No, some women would say go to hell, but she
Yeah.
didn't. But the important point I'm making is that, like
Service.
you, service is important. We There's a level of selfishness and self-centeredness that I find characterize a lot of people, especially professionals. There are a lot of people who feel I have made it, and therefore, you know, it ain't my business. So long as things don't touch me,
Mhm.
the negatives don't touch me, or the issues don't touch me, I am going along. But that for me is not what community is about, you know? And so I really, as you said, how many shows again?
96, nine,
96.
approximately 90, between 96 to 100, because there were days we did five, so some days we did five days to the week, but we
Right.
will round it off to be 96,
You
96
know?
shows.
Now
Um,
think about the production. If you well you're a filmmaker, you're a producer, you're an
yes,
art, you're into the cultural industry. Think in terms of what that would have been, if you had to basically put a cost to that, you know. So it is really a serious issue.
yeah. And in that time of those 96 shows, we had over 260,000 views in total,
Well,
right?
almost the whole of
200.
Barbados in terms of population.
Yes, but when we add up, if we were to add up all of the viewership of the shows, right? That it
Right.
was over about 260,000 views. that
Right.
we've had in total for 5 months, people. And the reason we need to look at this, Miss McLean, is to think about the power that we have. One person calling a next person, and look at what has happened, in the country. And I mean, we have to thank people like Caswell, who is also so, serve, whose mind is on service as well. Is focused on service. You look at Pastor Ferdinand Nichols,
Yes.
who devoted so much time even while I was traveling. Kima Stewart, who came on just a few evenings and then became a regular. There's so many persons who would have contributed. Heather Cole.
Cool. Yes, from living overseas, and she's willing to.
Yes, Heather Cole, and Lynette Eastman in the early
Yes.
days when her
Yes.
schedule allowed
A
her.
lot. Yeah.
She came on and gave some brilliant, presentations. So you have Lumumba, who comes on every now and again. Winston Clark, all of these people, and this has become a platform really for the opposition to gather. And we have shared that concept, the concept that it's okay to criticize the government. You don't have to be part of any particular party. That it is your right as a citizen. It is your right as a citizen to ask questions. Yes, go ahead, Miss McLean.
Well, and as you say, criticize the government, I want to emphasize that it is more than just, it is about and you mentioned Mrs. Corbin, of course, who's been doing an excellent job. In fact,
Yes,
I heard her contribution to one of the town hall meetings in the year in review on one of the radio stations earlier this afternoon. But it is also about ensuring that government is held to account, because at the end of the day, what you have been able to do. Let's even go back to that show, the National Insurance, where we were discussing that. Think about the situation if you didn't consent to having that program and all that flowed from that. What would have happened? We would have had some legislation passed, and most people would have had no clue
yes,
as to what transpired, what were and are the implications for them. And in fact, I would say that the government had to go back and look at what it was doing, how it presented, even building an awareness among
yes.
parliamentarians that Barbadians have become more attentive to what is going on in Parliament is making a significant difference. Because so I think at the end of the day, what you're saying is that Barbadians are being shown how to mind their business. And when I say mind their business, I don't mean the phrase in terms of drink water, mind your business, and in
Yes,
other words, stay out of people's business. You're paying attention to what is important to you. You're paying attention to what will impact you. And I think that is so critical, because at the end of the day, um, it really, I mean, we have touched on all kinds of issues. You've asked Barbadians to do some introspection, and
hmm,
hopefully that is something that we will ask them to do. And I'm being presumptuous there when I say we, but I believe that there's an issue there in terms of how we function as Barbadians. And I'm not, so to borrow the borrowed slogan, this is who we are.
yes,
The discussion of that borrowed slogan. We as a people, I remember CARICOM, and I will get the reference and send to you. CARICOM had undertaken a study about who we should be as Caribbean people, right? And as we look at the review, and I listened to the two young men, Jonathan and Thierry,
yes,
in reverse order. I am minded to ask that we pay some more attention to getting young people to hear them, to emulate them, because well, I spent a lot of years teaching at university. I went for one term, as it was then, which is equivalent to about a semester, and I end up spending that term and 17 more years with no regrets. I enjoyed it. But as I taught over the years, I have seen the same notion of selfishness. That there are young people who come into the educational system, to the university system, and it is less about acquiring knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and more about getting certified to get a job to earn a salary.
Yes.
Now, all of that is important, but that cannot be the be all and end all. What is important is that we create citizens who understand the importance of being part of a community, being responsible individually and collectively for shaping what this country is all about. And part of all of that is being able to step back and analyze, as you said, and bringing it back to the show now, step back and analyze and criticize, and critique and
Yes.
comment and offer solutions and commit to taking action at the personal level, and in the domestic space, as a member of a family, as an employee, as a citizen, and really make a difference. So I really think that when we think about this show, what the purpose is, what you've been able to achieve, um, in terms of impact. Somebody's joining from Trinidad and Tobago. I know you have been doing some interesting work there, but I
Yes.
also want Marcia, and if I get a chance, if we have time, I don't know how things will flesh out. I want you to share something about the work you have been doing outside of this, because I don't think people understand. No, I don't laugh, because if you do, I will share the part that I know. No, but in all seriousness, you have been touching the lives of a lot of young people in a way that a lot of people don't understand. And in doing that, I will start to talk about, so that you don't get away from it. You have demonstrated grit and resilience. And I have seen you've launched out in an area where we have a lot of talk, the cultural industries and the creative industries and so on. And I've seen you launch out on a prayer, what I say, on a wing and a prayer,
Bring in a prayer.
and have achieved a lot. And a lot of people don't understand that in the process of doing that, you have made some very serious connections that if people at the policy making level are serious, rather than seek to shut out certain people, they will leverage
Correct.
all that you have done. And I'll
Yeah.
give an example, because I hope that one day, you were encouraging us last week to go, last week, yeah, this is a new week, today is Sunday, last week, to go and view a movie produced by a Nigerian filmmaker.
Yes, ma'am.
You're a filmmaker too. And I can tell you now that I will speak to Pastor Ferdinand and company, and keep smiling, because I can do it. To have shown your work again. A lot of people have not seen it. And in particular, I speak about the most recent work that you would have done, which really was path breaking, to produce a movie within 5, 6 months. You're muted, I think.
Yes, yeah, it's about yeah,
Right.
about half a year really,
Half
that
a year from
production
from
and
from
post-production. Yeah.
mobilizing to
Yeah.
being featured
Yeah,
as
three
one
different
of
countries.
3 different countries, and also being what I call the capstone, the final event in the year of return in Ghana in 2019.
Yes.
And anybody who was following what was going on in Ghana would know that that year of return was a major thing.
Yes, it was big.
And you were able to get the government of Ghana, through the president of Ghana himself, to
Yes.
support your work. And I mean, as I said, there's a story to that story, which is very interesting. The
Yeah.
point I'm
One
making
of
is,
these days we will tell it.
okay, yeah, we will tell it by telling a bit before because I think people need to understand, when you contextualize this show, you put it in the context of who Marcia Weeks is and how determination will allow you to achieve. I know you're embarrassed about talking by yourself, but you're talking, I talking. No,
we have
because
Lumumba there. We have Lumumba.
okay, okay, fine. So now that you've done that, but I think that that is something people will understand better how you have been able to make this program a success if they look at what you are, what you've been able to do so far.
Well, thank you, Miss McLean. Yeah, it's I think the general thing that the takeaway, I think it's sometimes people say we just come on here and talk. And what Miss McLean is trying to say is that we are not just talkers. We are people who do. And Mark Fingal said something to me. He um, came to our school, and he and Red Plastic Bag, and they said, "Listen, this is what you guys do is one of the best kept secrets in Barbados because we don't advertise. We've had young people even sleeping and living in our studio." you know,
Mm-hmm.
to protect them in their communities, all kinds of different things. We don't really need to go into all of that. But the point, though, is that, you, Miss McLean, you were on here and hearing the young man talking about a program that you were one of those who started it at UWI. So the point is, guys, that I think that we want to say is that we are people of action. We are not just of action, but that really love Barbados. That Barbados really, really matters to us. And everywhere I would go, Miss McLean, I rep Barbados. I don't rep Jamaica. I represent Barbados. So
Thank you.
this is not new for me. This is not a put on. This is what I do. I do. Once I travel with my Barbados colors. I was just in Poland. I carried two flags. Not a Jamaican flag, two Barbadian flags. I tell you, I have in my suitcase. And because that's it. And so the point though is that we are people of action, and I think that's what you want to say. But Lumumba is here.
Welcome.
Hi, Happy New Year, Lumumba. I don't know if he's hearing us. You know, the reason don't go, guys. Those of you who have logged on, we're still waiting on Mr. Franklin. The
How
clock
are
is
you? How are you?
doing great, Lumumba. And when I think of you, Lumumba, I just want to say, on behalf of the opposition, thank you. Somebody said, "Welcome, Ross." Thank you. You know why? Because the opposition is not just the
Welcome,
man.
welcome. Thank you.
Good.
Yes,
He's there in person now. Good.
yes. Ross, the opposition is not just the Marcia Week show. The opposition is Bongo and Lumumba as well, because you guys are always on the move and always have something you're saying, and we feed off each other. The opposition, we need Barbadians to understand that this opposition is wide, it is vast, it is beyond. It's on Facebook, it's on WhatsApp. If they try to stop me today,
Instagram.
it's Instagram. If they try to stop this show today, opposition is still there. That's the thing about it. But welcome and thank you for what you've been doing.
That's right.
We're talking about a year in review. What are your
Right.
thoughts on what's been happening in Barbados over the last 12 months?
Well, that's interesting. Um,
Remember,
it's
you
been well.
can't
I
use.
see.
Don't say
I
anything
see.
about. Don't
Can
say
you hear
anything
me?
about that. Don't say
Can you
anything
hear me?
about that.
Yes,
Yes.
he can hear you.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, but no, I was interested in the sense that I see a lot of people is waking up. Um, I'm not only seeing the dark, I'm also seeing the light, and I'm seeing more of the light than the dark. So, it's interesting to me to see people that a couple of years ago, they wouldn't even talk with me, or they would have, whatever, and now to see people from all walks of life, Christians, Muslims, like they're just waking up and coming into to consciousness of what is actually taking place. And I would like to thank people like you two beautiful sisters that is always out there on the front line, always pushing the message. And so we have a lot to be thankful for. And there's we yes, we suffered a few losses along the way. We have friends that they're no longer here with us now, but um overall, I think this year coming up is going to be very exciting, very revealing, and we just have to be prepared as a people for it. You will see a lot of people getting exposed, um, a lot of officials in government, a lot of officials in the church. All these things you will be seeing taking place come this coming year. So we just got to brace ourselves and be thankful for life and be thankful for health and be thankful that we could still communicate with each other at this time.
Yes, someone is saying, Angela Knight
We
says one
stuck?
politician, one what? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me, Miss McLean? Okay.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yes,
I had my
Angela
mic
Knight.
muted, but I can't hear.
Yes, Angela Knight says one politician made me laugh as he could tell me how they say, um, one perfect balance. The politicians had the bungle lights and Lumumba intro down pat. I'm
which,
hoping Bongo.
which
I'm hoping.
politicians is that?
I don't know. She didn't say, but I'm hoping Bongo. I sent the link to Bongo as well because Miss McLean.
Oh,
This opposition. This opposition. I tell you, we're like ants. They're going to try to stop this set here, and then because it is a philosophy that all 280,000 of us make up the opposition, and so they can't stop us. It's not about party, and that's what this show has done. It has caused Barbados to wake up. Do you remember the first little slogan we put up here was "Bajans wake up"? Who you remember that, Miss McLean? That was one of the things across here. We are pushing that all the time. Bajans wake up, Bajans wake up, right? And we're seeing Bongo Lights, they were pushing that. Lumumba pushing that. Fred Corbin pushing that. You had right? Winston pushing that. The point is that this opposition is vast, it's wide, it is not, you can't contain it, you can't decide that you're going to stop it. And I
it
just
is.
want to thank you, Lumumba, for your contribution to this, and Bongo
And
Light
I
said,
would like to thank you for allowing me to make that contribution.
yes, yes. And Angela is saying here, brace ourselves. I see the general is on. The general is on. It's just saying, brace ourselves, keep up all the good fight, be vigilant in 2024. So this is not, causing us to stop, and we just, you gotta have to review what you've done, take a look at it, and begin to position yourself as you move forward. And somebody like Miss McLean, that I'm just amazed at her, and I keep catching her love for the country, and that's what I want Barbadians to understand. The love of country should take priority over party, right, Lumumba?
That's right.
Yeah. Love of country should take priority over party, and I think that's what Miss McLean has shown us. People like Kimar, who came away. Who else showed us that? Well, Mr. Franklin is gonna let me know when he's ready. You know who else showed us that? Ralph Thorne.
Yep. I think, you see, one of the things that amazes me is that people and politicians, the prime minister, for example, will leave Barbados and say to the world that we are a democracy and people, we adhere to human rights and so on. Why then should Barbadians be afraid to express their opinions? Nobody's asking anybody to defame
That's
anybody,
right.
but and to be disrespectful. I believe as Barbadians, we've been brought up in the same way you would have been, Marcia, in Jamaica and across the Caribbean, to be respectful people as a rule. But does it mean that I cannot critique or question something? The very things that we seek to do. I mean, if we look at Barbados, we have had people challenging issues for as long as I know myself, and that's a long time. You know, I've been around since, well, before independence. I don't have a problem, you know that. You know, I've been around before. I'm a child of independence. I was
Yeah.
10 years old when Barbados became independent. No need to hide it,
Wow.
you know. And so I have seen this country, and I happen to be the youngest girl in a family of 4 daughters and 7 sons, and I'm the third from the last. So I saw my elder siblings and so on, you know, speak on these things, and this is what we are about. If we are who we say we are, then why should anybody be afraid of any discussion? Whether it is in a small group, it is in a public space like this, touching the world, because that's what you touch. Because you're out there to ask questions, to understand, to educate, to make recommendations for the betterment of the country. And if
Yes.
people don't want to deal with that, then they should not be saying the things that they're saying to the world about who we are as Bajans. You
Yes.
know,
And you see that's where people like the Lumumba Ralph Thorne, who though he is part of the party and he's part of the 30, he still represents the people, and we're looking for more of that. It's not about trying to say, Ralph Thorne, don't be part of the Barbados Labour Party. That's not really where I'm coming from. I'm saying, while you are part of the Barbados Labour Party, you're part of the Democratic Labour Party, or whatever party you want to be part of, put country first, put the people first. That's it, not your policies and your agenda. And on that note, Easy D, I want to say Easy D is one of those opposition members who speaks his mind on here, and he doesn't always agree with what everybody's saying. But he could come on today and he said, "Greetings, family," because we have not ostracized him. He's not being ridiculous and disrespectful. And he's been, we've had our people and Easy D have had trouble in the chat, but Easy D comes back all the time. And we want this to be a platform where we can have differing views. I've invited people on here with different views, but they don't come. I don't know if they're afraid of Caswell. I see him laughing there, so I think he might be ready.
ready? Okay, great.
You know, I am one of the most peaceful people that I know. I do not resort to violence. I fight with my skills, intellect. I I argue. I do not go and advocate violence. That when I find that it bothers me when people say that they're afraid of me. I heard one moderator on the calling program say he's frightened for Caswell. I can't gonna be frightened for me. Plus, the thing is, I'm heterosexual, so I don't see why you would be frightened for me. And and so, you know, you see, that's what we're talking about. You see, these things come out. I fight with my mouth, my head, you know. So I argue. I argue a lot. You know, I do it for a living. So I don't say that I'm always right. I would like to be, but that's not possible. But when I am wrong, I will tell you. I will come forward. Like, for instance, people were trying to challenge me on the issue with Santia Bradshaw. And they have not brought enough arguments for me to say, look, I make a mistake, I am sorry. Because I'm still holding the position that I've held from day one when I saw this thing in the newspaper. You know, because none of the arguments have convinced me that I am wrong.
Yeah.
I am not saying that I couldn't be wrong in the end. But if I am wrong, show me that I am wrong. Don't curse me.
Yes.
I'm not going to curse with you. I have too much
Yes.
respect for myself. And I am
Yes.
not going. And then the thing is, if I have all of those people around me, I am one of 15 children, Maxine, and I disrespect them. If you see me go out there in public and misbehave, I remember once walking in a march, and it was very animated, and the only lady decided was it, Uncle? I look around, I said, "Oh Lord," you know what I mean? She pulled me up. She was on the side of the road, observing the march. So I have to be careful. I have too many people around me that I owe a duty to be respectful for, So I can't. I've
Yes.
had instances where I turn up at a disciplinary hearing and people say, "Oh, you bring Caswell? Case done. Come on back to work." It robs me of using my skills. I won't go and argue a case, and you can't hide my talents. And that does not happen once or twice, a lot of times. And I tell them, but why? I'm not going to beat you.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
respect your views. People argue. Sometimes they argue things they think is real rubbish. They sit down and they listen.
yeah, yeah,
And then sometimes you might hear a pearl out of it. Something that like when you um a bird scratching through down on the road, you will still find a little thing in it. Yeah, that's it. You might still find something in it. And so I don't disrespect people. I try not to. But sometimes it comes over like that because um the person that is receiving, not because I'm sending, is their misinterpretation. Anyhow, thank.
No, before Caswell starts, I just want to respond to Mega Rude Boy 007. The channel never has anyone who supports the government's position. And I believe that everything in life needs balance as just a law of nature. Now, I am always skeptical about the use of the word never because typically that is not the case. And I'll just give two examples. I have sat here as a member of what I would call the opposing party, Labour Party, which is seen as the one or two major parties. And I have supported the government's position on issues related to climate change and
yes,
other foreign
yes,
policy issues of which I know. So when people say this, I challenge Rude Boy, if in, Mega Rude Boy 007, to put his, because it says Rude Boy, his position where he supports. Nobody stops you from speaking. Marcia has indicated on multiple occasions that she's willing to bring people on from who normally are in the audience, either as a guest or to hear them responding and so on. So to say that one is not true, and two, you just heard Marcy earlier say that she's invited other people to come on this program and they've never done so. If you want elaboration on who she was talking to, but that clearly is not accurate, and it's unfortunate when we have such a wide generalization. But I don't want to detain,
yeah,
sorry, as well, and the
yeah.
important part, the other
No,
important
no,
parts.
Yeah,
no.
I will just say this
Maxine.
this real quickly, and then I'm going to turn over to Caswell. Is that the last thing that I said that I really the program that I thought had great potential was the peace program, and we had different views on it. Caswell felt differently about it. Kimar and I liked it actually. Kimar has talked about homelessness and love what Kimar Safri is doing. There was a young man on here who, touted many of the programs by government that he liked. The truth of the matter is that we have to remember that we are the opposition. And so our job is not to come on here, and listing all the great things about the government. Our job, we only have this much time. And so we're going to look at things critically and look at the things that are affecting us. And so that is our job. And you've heard Caswell, take up for, in Jamaica we say take up for the Attorney General on this program, and he has had loggerheads with Winston about that. So I don't think that is so, but we are the opposition. So try and remember that, okay? But thank you for your comment, Mega Rude Boy, and we're open to more. All sides. As I said, Easy D has been on here and he shares his view, etc. That's okay. So, Mega Rude Boy, I want to put a number here, and if there's anything that you want to share about the government, you can feel free to call me, and at the end of the program, I'll put you on and let you share your thoughts about the government. Okay. because I think then this needs to be a place where we can speak about things, um, um, in a non-partisan way. Because everything you made a comment earlier about it all being politics, I understand that, but we be non-partisan about it? That's the thing. Okay. Over to Mr. Franklin. Thank you so much. And Lumumba, don't go. Stay as long as you can. But over to Mr. Franklin, sir.
Marcy,
As we talk
Marcy,
about,
Marcy, you just deflated me there just now when you reminded me that I supported the Attorney General on something. I you know, it hit me right here. It isn't normal for me to support it because he is not normally in the right position at all, But on that rare occasion when he was, I had to say something, because his policies, his pronouncements always get me going in the wrong direction. But this time he was right. And I dare tell you that I don't care whether I like you or I hate you. If you're right, you're right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. It doesn't my views don't are not determined by who you are. It is what you say and what you do. If the government ever does something that is good, and I think so, I will say so. And I've said that when I was a member of the Senate. I got up and I spoke and I said, well, look, the what the government has done. I remember when the public service appointments bill, I got up and I said, I want to congratulate the government on it. I would have done it differently, but we would have gotten the same result. So I was pleased, and I said that it's on the record. So I don't hate anybody in government. I just don't think so. And so like people have seen me and called me and tell me, because you let Maxine get everything on the program. I said, but I let Maxine get everything. That was Maxine's view. She might have a different view than me, And Maxine knows for years we've argued, but we've always remained respectful of each other. We have not always seen eye to eye. It isn't anything to do with who you are. It is what you're saying. If I disagree with it, I can say so.
yeah.
And I disagree with a lot of things that this government is doing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there's so many things that I disagree with, and they have 30 people to sing their praises. My job is to come and join that choir and sing their praises too. They're not going to come up and say, oh, we are doing the wrong thing. So somebody has to, and because there's no opposition, I'll tell you, look, when we started this thing 6 months ago, I was very docile, minding my own business, going up, but then I couldn't allow the government to get away with the pension reform. And I'm going to segue right into what I was supposed to be talking about. The pension reform and the national insurance debacle. And that is when we spoke, Marcia, and I said I got a thing, and I said, well, and then Marcia graciously allowed me to use her program to get my views across, because it would have meant I would have to start my own channel and get somebody to do all this back what Dave does. I don't know how to do that, when I can just sit down and talk and let Dave do the hard work. So Marcia, I thank you very much. Dave, you don't know how much you've done to allow me to get my views across, and I will always appreciate this. So it isn't anything to do with hatred or anything. So I Maxine knows, Marcia, I don't always agree. Sometimes on this short program, Kimar says things, and I said, no, and I step in. So when some person can make a position that, unless they've only watched one or two shows, and they watch the show that came down on where the government has done a lot of nonsense, like with this whole check thing. I so what do you want me to do? Don't say anything about it? I can do that, but you would have to apologize first. Because when you apologize and say, well, I did the wrong thing, I stop. Because that is, you don't kick a fellow when he's down. And if she was gracious enough to say, look, I am sorry, I made a mistake, and I ain't going to do it again, that's all well and good. And hand the resignation to the speaker, all well and good with me. I would have to comment on it anymore because the matter be fixed. Right, but let me start with pension reform and national insurance. This is one of the things that they did very badly, they did very wrong. Government denied that this was an IMF-inspired project. But the chairman of the National Insurance came on the BRADSHAW'S program to counter what he was saying and admitted that much. I said, well, boy, if he's a vice being chairman, boy, he got a lot of luck. He got something holding on these people, because he actually admitted that the IMF gave you a deadline to get this thing done, January 1st, but they want to do it before January 1st to get this thing going. They said, one, that the National Insurance will make it a statutory board. National Insurance was a statutory board from inception. The Right Excellent Errol Walton Barrow made National Insurance a statutory board. That is not in dispute. If you look at the legislation, you will see that it says it is a body corporate, the 1966 legislation. Then, the only difference between National Insurance and any other statutory board in Barbados, National Insurance had a difference. The board was supposed to concentrate on managing the National Insurance Fund, because Barrow foresaw that fund would be massive and it will need expertise in managing money. And he decided, look, you know something, let the people who do with personnel matters deal with personnel matters. We don't want a board that's going to be managing $1 billion fund to be who can work late and who had 2 hours overtime and that kind of thing. He said, no, let the personnel people deal with that. We will continue they will be still subject to the Service Commission. So up until the 1st of December this year, everybody employed in National Insurance should have been employed by a Service Commission. They call it now the Administrative General and Professional Service Commission, previously the Public Service Commission. So they changed that, and they came up with this monstrosity. And in order to get the workers to go into National Insurance, they threatened them, and when that wasn't seeming to be working, they bribed them, because people have now gotten jobs at National Insurance, what they previously done. They're giving them now $2,000 more for coming over to the board. One young man, but he's a young man because he's my age, who had actually submitted his retirement papers. When he saw the new amount of money that he's going to be getting, he said, look, I got another 3 years I could work. And he sent back the papers. Because I don't blame him. Now, if you can get $2,000 a month for the next 3 years, you know, and you really just going to go home and tend the garden. I would tend the garden, but even after I leave home, when I get money to leave work, you know. So that was the case. So a lot of people, and then you have people, they brought people in, like the legal officers, for instance. The people who are junior in the public service, but in terms of law, are now getting more than the deputy director of public prosecutions. Not junior lawyers and the senior lawyers in the public service, they go on past them, and then they created 10 chiefs. Well, there were 2 already, and then they created 8 more. They came in when they amended the legislation to pull it back. They created another 8 chiefs. And these people are not going to be doing anything new in National Insurance. This work is already being done by the people there. You're just going to bring people on top to give them permanent secretary pay, because they're going to be getting a lot of money, almost as much as a permanent secretary, and they're not anywhere near where a permanent secretary is. But no, that takes care of the National Insurance Fund, because the National Insurance does not make money. So when they call it a commercial state enterprise, that is a joke. Commercial state enterprises make money, for instance, or should make money, because CBC is a commercial state enterprise. They have not made a penny in years, but they have potential of making money. right? So these agencies that are supposed to make money, the transport board, who don't make any money either, but they should. They are commercial state enterprises. National Insurance receives money from each worker in Barbados, or should receive from each worker in Barbados, and they take that money, invest it for you, and then pay your pensions, your invalidity benefits, your sickness benefits, maternity benefits, pensions, or what have you. So it is not national insurance, so they're making money. So when you go into the national insurance fund and take out so much money to fund wages, you are going to put a strain on those funds, because the people, when they were attempting to satisfy the IMF dictates, they went ahead and bribed people to stay in national insurance. So when you see the minister on TV, and Lord forgive him, because he knows what he's doing, but I can't say he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's serving two masters, the prime minister, and he's a preacher in the Adventist church. And they tell them already that those two jobs are not consistent with each other, because I saw him in the house saying things that I know that were not true. Mind you, I saw him in the house one time actually saying that Ronnie Yerbo should be stoned. You know, I don't even know that he should do that, but that's just to show you that he is not being the preacher type material that he's supposed to be. But I'm not going to go further down that road. Right? Then the next thing is pension reform. The government and the IMF lied to the people of this country by saying that they did an actuarial review on the government pensions and government pension plan, and they found that they got to make changes to the plan because it was not viable and whatever else thing. You know, that sounds good. That when the actuaries did some work on it, and you listen to the actuaries and stuff, that is an absolute lie. There is no government pension plan. None whatsoever. There should have been since 1947, but every administration since then paid pensions from current revenue, so they never had a fund or a plan. So when you join the public service and you put in a pensionable post, when you retire, if you work to 33 and a third years, you get a full pension, which was 2/3 of your salary. Most people don't opt for the 2/3 of your salary. They take a gratuity, which is a quarter of your annual pension, and they give you that times 12 and a half and call that a gratuity. Thereafter, the remaining amount, they give you that, and it's about, if you work 23 and 30 years, it's about half your salary. So you get about half your salary if you take a gratuity. If you don't take a gratuity, you get 2/3. But I always tell people to take the gratuity because you don't know how long you live. You might die tomorrow. And all that money would have stopped in there, but you could have got your wife so that she can find somebody to marry and that kind of stuff because she would have got money. So I always advise people to take the gratuity. But they said they did an actuarial review of that. There was no such fund, no such scheme to do a study on. So that was a lie, but that was good for people who didn't know. So when the people hear, oh, the actuary said this and the actuary said that, people will go and believe them. But I happen to have worked in the public service a lot of years, and then I continue working with public servants all these years. So I can tell you, and after all these years, that people think that I have some expertise in pensions, and I know a little bit about it. There is no fund. There's no pension fund. What they did now, however, prior to this, public workers did not actually pay out any money into a pension fund, because the reasoning behind it was that your salary in the public service was always less than you were actually worth. 25% less. But that 25% was supposed to be going into the fund that they were supposed that, but they never put it in the fund. So you were being paid 25% less. Now, they're asking you to pay 5% if you work for over the national insurance maximum, which is $5,120, and it'll go up from tomorrow. I can't remember how much that would be per month. And if you work for less, you pay 3%, I think it is. So you're not being asked to pay for your pension, which is basically you're paying twice. And I can tell you why you're paying twice. Because if you are in a public service job and you are not entitled to a pension, you then are entitled to a gratuity. And that gratuity is paid to you after each year, at the end of each year. So if the two of us, you and I, Marcy, we are working in the public service, we are doing the same job, but your job is pensionable and mine is not, you will get 25% more money than me. Because that 25% is supposed to be going to fund my pension. But no, they have now taken away that. So the government has actually taken away that from future public servants. And you no longer have to work 33 and 30 years to qualify for your full pension. They become, you now have the privilege of working for 40 years. So it has gone up now from 33 and 30 years to 40 years. They sneak that in and tell them about anything, Most people don't know. And they're saying to you, oh, these are people now coming into the public service. And the unions sat and agreed and didn't say anything about it because they are not their members. No, they're not their members yet. But they will be. I just hope not though. But they have sat and refused to stand up for what is right. Problem being that the unions have now found themselves serving more than one master. A friend of mine told me that you can only serve one master. You can have several mistresses, but only one master. But these people have a master and now this mistress called Motley. And they're serving her. And not the best interest of the people who pay them. So those were the first two things I want to talk about. The national insurance changes and the pension arrangements. Mind you, they were both denied. They denied that the pension, there was going to be any pension reform under this IMF program. They denied it. And then they brought it in force this year to put the legislation in place this year to be effective on the 1st of January, tomorrow. So even though they say that it is not true, they tell you one thing and do the next. I have that's why I have great difficulty. And if that's that gentleman who wants me to speak and support the government, I can't support that. Right? Also, I want to come down now to the Republic. You'll remember, well, this starts before the beginning of last year, but it continues. It's because they had promised a referendum, and then they changed their mind and said there will be, they didn't even tell there will be no referendum, just went ahead and start putting things in place. However, when challenged about making the Republic Day and Independence Day the same day, the Prime Minister got up. Because I had spoken in the Senate and I was ruled out of order before I said what he was going to say, because they heard like the president was a bit clairvoyant, and because I was saying something and he heard where life was going along, and I said, and Barrow got rid of Motley from the city, and now Motley's granddaughter, and the president ruled me out of order. And he said me I cannot attribute improper motives to a member of the other place. I said, thank you, sir, I'm guided by you, but it seemed that you would read minds, because I was going to say that she wanted to take Barrow out of independence. But since you say I can't say so, I won't. And I moved on then because I wasn't allowed to say that. But that is the effect. So they want to make sure that in the next couple of generations that when people ask what Errol Barrow, they would be saying Errol who? But they would know about Mayor Motley, who brought Barbados to Republican status. And what is Republican status? Everything that we had all along, except that we don't have a queen anymore. And we just have a president now. That's the only difference in our system of government, because everything that happens under the Republic was happening in Barbados, except that we had a queen, and the president and the Republic requires a president. That's it, you know. So it was nothing earth-shattering about Barbados becoming a republic, because Elizabeth was not the Queen of England who also ruled Barbados. She was the Queen of Barbados. And that was done by Errol Barrow to keep the white people in Barbados. Because during independence, they were they were heading to New Zealand and Australia. And in order to pacify them and keep their money here, Barrow said, well, look, when I big name, we still got Elizabeth as the Queen, and we still got John Storr as the Governor General. So that's to pacify a few of them. Mind you, a lot of them rushed and went to Australia because they didn't want to be ruled by a black government. So that was Barrow's way of not going straight into Republican status. And so when she's talking about completing our independence was completed in 1966. It was just a ruse to keep the capital in Barbados so that the white people who had money don't get vexed and run away with it. Barrow was not an idiot. So he did the smart thing and kept our Republican status, but they said no. And she said the anthem are going to change, the pledge are going to change, you know, and everything can remain the same. Then following that, the next year, we had an announcement about Barbados National Day. Remember? What is shocking about that is that we found out about it after the t-shirts were printed by BLP people. They had Barbados National Day t-shirts printed, hundreds of t-shirts printed. Somebody got hold of insider information and jumped the gun. But the people of this country protested. So they back off. Unless somebody with enough Barbados National Day t-shirts, they don't know what to do with. I don't know, but we ain't even got no sugar factories that could get the people to work on the engines. But but they had them on their hands because of, that's what I'm saying, this government can't keep a secret. Or if they're not keeping a secret, they're giving it, they're telling people their business so that their friends can get the jump on everybody else. Because when you heard that it was going to be Barbados National Day and a young entrepreneur decided, well, I can start doing some t-shirts, he would have been too late. The BL people had them all printed and waiting. So that was the thing. But even now, they have not completed the process of Barbados becoming with a Republican constitution. They did a hodgepodge job in, I think it's October 6, 2021. That's when it came to the Senate. When they took the old constitution that we had, made a few changes, and like I said, put a few bells and whistles on it, and said from the appointed day, this will become the constitution and supreme law of Barbados. So when you hear people running around saying, oh, they got the constitution, they have one. It is just that they didn't tell anybody that they were doing it. Because when I got to talk when I was in Senate. When I was in the Senate, when I saw the bill, I said, you all realize that when they're passing the constitution here today and tell nobody nothing? They laugh at me. So even the government scientists did not know that they were passing a constitution that day. All they thought they were doing was to passing a bill to make Sandra Mason the president of Barbados and the governor general. They didn't realize that clause 4 was saying that it is no it is not a constitution. So I don't blame a lot of people who say we don't have a constitution because they may tell you anything. And that is one of the things that this government has been doing consistently. With all the changes, if you look national insurance that we talked about earlier, those changes came in the dead of night when nobody looking. Pension reform, national insurance, they came. And then the next thing I want to talk about is the Barbados national ID that also came as a secret. That bill was passed. I've been a member of the Senate, did not even know it was passed because they didn't circulate it. And the day I missed the Senate, when they realized I was in the Senate, Monique Tate was not in the Senate that day, Crystal Drex was not in the Senate, or myself, and they pushed this thing not on the order paper and passing all its stages in one day and had it put down. So by the time I hear about it, it was 2 years later because I never saw that bill. They never circulated it until they were ready. Here's when they start talking about this national ID, and I think it's Winston who sent a copy of the bill to me, and I said, well, this is strange. And I went checking to see on Parliament website, but I'm going to keep on checking. I realized it's been passed ever since 2 years ago. So they passed it without debate, without telling people, because they knew they were going to do something dirty. And then they said it was not going to be mandatory. I remember the Attorney General saying so. And they said so because we have similar laws to Jamaica. Our constitution and the Jamaica constitution are far from each other. And the courts in Jamaica had ruled that mandatory ID card was unconstitutional. So Barbados people backpedaled and said, no, I think it's going to be mandatory. If you want it, you think you're going to do it. But now they have done everything possible to make it mandatory. And I do not know why a government that is supposed to be acting on our behalf, acting in our best interest, doing things and not telling me what they're doing it for or why they're doing it. They're supposed to be working for us. Now, if I had the person working for me and they were doing things and wouldn't tell me, when they find out that person be looking for a job, And that is what should be happening now. These people who are deceiving us should be looking for a job. And I'm very serious about that. They should be looking for a job because they have not been honest and truthful to the people of this country. I make a joke all the time and I say that their default position is lying. They lie first. And then they realize, some anybody tell lie about that because they're the big thing. And then they might tell the truth eventually. But they lie first. They always lie. And then they might come back and change what they're planning to do. Well, this again, the next thing I have here is VAT that was supposed to come down from 17% to 15%, but I think that is early late last year, early this year, but so far we didn't get it yet, and everything else is going up. And the sewage tax was supposed to be there for 18 months. That 18 months came down and passed, and they're still here, and we're still paying through the chute. Now that sewage tax, according to Clyde Maskell, is netting $80 million. But that money, we are not seeing it coming into the system because the Water Authority still can't get things right. The money was supposed to be divided between the Water Authority and Sanitation Service Authority, but it's at Water Authority keep all. Again, this is something I can keep popping in, but it's telling you when they take things to Parliament, how to take them back. Because this bill went to Parliament to make the Barbados Water Authority a collection agency, and I had to point out to them that that's not the role of the Water Authority, and they had to come back and make amendments to the legislation to give the Barbados Water Authority power to take up money. And because the money was a tax, and taxes are supposed to go into consolidated fund, they have not put in consolidated fund, and the Water Authority is doing what they like with it, and nobody knows how much it is. And right now, they have promised to give the people of St. Thomas, I have to call St. Thomas first, that's where I'm from, St. Thomas, St. John's, St. Joseph, St. Lucie, better water supply, and so far this year it's become worse. And then they want to introduce jobby water. That's another thing the government was doing. They have the resources now. They can build a desalination plant because the last administration, I think it was, Maxine can correct me if I am wrong, but it was under SWIC. He wanted to establish a series of desalination plants around the country, which would have been far better than the stooling. That's the word. Water rather than desalination. And they, I don't understand why, if we are not being used as guinea pigs again, because Barbados is becoming a country of guinea pigs. They're allowing people from the outside world to test their technology, test their medical systems and stuff on us. Master, I know I can call that word. They're testing them on us first. And that is one of the reasons I believe that this digital ID thing, they're trying to perfect it in Barbados to see how it's going to work and stuff. Then they can unleash it everywhere else, because that is not Barbados technology. That is not something that we came up with and that we can do. This is something that when our visiting prime minister comes to the country, she comes back with some of these basket of experiments that the people want to use on us, and then she unleashes them on us. I said visiting prime minister because she doesn't live here. And even for tax purposes, she don't live here, because you got to be here for 183 days in order to pay taxes. And I don't think she qualifies to pay tax in Barbados. She's not been here that long. Right? So the Barbados national ID is dangerous. I don't have one. I don't want one. I'm not going to get one, because I would like to have an ID that would fit into my wallet. Right now, the big one that we have don't fit into these spaces, says the credit card. So I would like one that fit the credit card. I've said that more than once. However, I do not understand why I have to pin it, or why you would want me to pin it. I know when I go to the bank and they give me a ATM card, even a credit card, I have to pin it, because that gives me access to my money. But what do I get when I pin an ID card? What access do I get? How is that benefiting me? I don't understand, and nobody has explained that so far, because the government feels that they can come down and from on high make edicts and we must comply. That is not the way I work. They must explain to me why it is necessary. Just don't tell me that I gotta do it, because I have never been like that. I got too much licks as a little boy for not complying. To start now, complying is easy, but you can't beat me now. I am very sorry, and I'm going to tell the people of this country, if you have already gotten your photograph taken, so be it. Don't pin it, however, because I am not, mind you, I'm not going to get my picture taken and put on any ID card that I don't understand. The old ID card, I had some basic information. It tell me how tall, I don't know if I shrank, but when I was born, I'm a citizen of Barbados, and I'm male, and my name. I think that's good enough for me. That's all they need to know about me, They don't need to know when they pin this thing how much money I got in any bank in Barbados. Mind you, they will be surprised, because nobody gives me $7,500 checks to put down, so I ain't got much. But so I don't have a lot, so they will know that, they will find out that. But I don't want them to know. I want them to know what I want them to know. That they should not have access to all of my business. They will have access to my medical records, because when you go to the hospital now, they're asking you for the card. I went to get some blood tests done, and I thought an ID card was supposed to identify you. The people saw me, and they spoke to me. I talked about the attendants. They, hi Frankie, how you doing? Somebody even asked me how's Snow, and mind you, by the way, Snow's birthday is tomorrow. So they knew enough about me that they don't need my ID card. But they have to get the ID card because the law now requires you to give them, or their instructions require. An ID card is to identify you. And if you can say to the person, I know that is Caswell Franklyn. How you know it's Caswell Franklyn? Because we went to school together, we used to pitch together. We were in the union together. You say, hey, on the floor, keep on noise. I know that's Caswell. You don't need an ID card to identify me then because you know me from your personal knowledge. An ID card is to identify you to a third party who don't know you. But then all of a sudden, it's not become mandatory. It's not become mandatory for you to vote under the current legislation. If you go to a polling station, once you're registered to vote and you go to a polling station and you don't have an ID card, they will go and they will check to make sure you're saying you are, and you will be able to vote. Now they're going to disenfranchise you under this legislation. You can't vote unless you get this card. You can't get a driver's license. They're blackmailing you. You can't access services in this country unless you get an ID card. And the services that they're talking about would include going to the hospital and getting a blood test, getting x-rays, getting whatever the hospital can provide for you. So they're going to make you a non-citizen of Barbados. Make you look like a visitor when you come here on the airplane. You get sick, they rush you to the hospital, and you don't got the ID card and nothing. So, and you got a Barbados card, that's what they're going to relegate you to if you take that ID. So enough people must tell them, hell no, we won't go. We ain't going on that road. And if you want me to go down that road, we want to take you out. Because it's you going to go or me going to go. And that's why I want to put a little ad here, no Marcia, on the, not this coming Saturday, 13th, we will be marching, protesting the requirements of that ID card. And I want everybody in Barbados who care about themselves and care about Barbados and care about their children to come out and say no. All right? That is as you cannot allow these people who we elect to run roughshod over the people of this country as though we are their little serfs. My next item now would be the tuition fees at CHEQUE. Under the last administration, they instituted, I'm not here now trying to put a case with the Democrat Party. They've already put their case, and the people rejected it. They said, no, things were wrong, things hard, we can't afford it. And they didn't ask you to pay all the tuition fees, they asked you to pay a little piece. And some people couldn't afford, some people who could afford and still don't want to pay. And the government campaigned on a program that says we going to get done away with that. We can pay all the fees for UE students. Up to this year, now they have reversed that policy and they're asking people to pay. And now they owe the University of West Indies millions of dollars. Millions of dollars in fees that they have not paid to the university, even though they said they would. But they did that. You see, this is a party that will say anything to win, whether it is true or not. And usually it's not the truth. From my experience with them, they say what they tell you what you want to hear. And when you hear it, then they say, well, we didn't have all the figures, so we couldn't give it. All the figures were there. They were all available. They knew, but they thought it sounds sexy, you know, and it sounds good. And the Dems were the worst thing in the world. And now we are seeing that far from being the worst things in the world, they're better than this group. Because we didn't have any IMF blowing down our throats, coming down our throats, taking away our entitlements, firing people, demanding that government do not pay national insurance for the staff, and that's what we want to get into next. and then go right into that. We had the ash program when the ash from St. Vincent volcano, the place, and then they had other people doing other little things around the place. And government hired a whole cadre of people to clean up. And government called them contract workers. Contract workers in Barbados, because you call a person a contract worker, does not make you a contract worker. Your contract, it's the terms on which you are employed that determines if you're a contract worker. Like for instance, if you are building a house and you hire a contractor, you do not require the contractor to build the house himself. He can hire his staff. He can hire people to come in. He can hire carpenters. He can hire masons, plumbers, whoever else to get the job done. As long as at the end of the day you have a house, that's what you want. So that's a contract worker. The guy who comes from my house and goes to your house and the next person's house with the bead worker and stuff, he's a contract worker. He works for himself. If he doesn't feel like working, he doesn't have to, and nobody will fire him. You know, and the law sets out some of the guidelines of which will determine if you are a contract worker or not. And to show you, these people were required to work from 7 in the morning till 3 or whatever it is, or till 4. One of the conditions for a contractor is that he can work anytime. But these people were required under the rules, and I'm not going to read them all now, but if you look at the Employment Rights Act, they set out some of the guidelines in the first schedule which determine if you're a contractor or not. These people were getting vacation. You don't get a contractor vacation. They were reported to certain people. They were being disciplined. You can tell me a contractor come to my house to build a place and then he curse somebody and they suspend you for 2 weeks. You can't. You know what I mean? So you can't. So everything that they were doing meant that these people were not contract employees. But what happens when you are a worker, an employee, you have to pay a certain portion of your national insurance contributions, and the government pay a certain portion. You pay 11.1% of your salary for national insurance, but a self-employed person pays 17.1%, and there's no contribution from your employer because there's none. The government then pays 12%. The employer pays 12%. They wanted to get away from paying that 12%. But what is dangerous about that is that the workers, when you do not pay that money, when he becomes ill, you don't get a sickness benefit. And when you reach our age maximum, they don't get the pension. And you can imagine a fella who been working for the government of Barbados, and then the government did not pay in his contributions. When the time comes, he goes to look for a pension, he ain't getting nothing. What's going to happen to him? Especially if he's an unskilled fella, ain't got no savings and stuff, was living from paycheck to paycheck and stuff. What is going to happen to this government is creating poverty, and they're creating long-term poverty. You know, there's not just poverty for the short term, there's poverty when they get old too. And people love them. Well, you can love who you like, but I'm certainly not going to love somebody who is taking advantage of me and looking at my face and laughing and telling me all kind of sweet things. And people could get contracts, and then when they could give away $7,500 out of that contract money, and then it hurt them. Then you take these people here's that clean the roads, getting $500, could give anybody a $7,500 contribution. No, they can't. They live from paycheck to paycheck. And we had a case that was highlighted on this program where one young lady who was working for the government, and they did not even provide basic amenities, which is required by the law, that you must have toilet facilities and stuff when you have the workers. They didn't provide them. So she had to find her way in the bushes and step down a well right down there, and then the government refused to give her a cent. Said that she's a contract employee. Eventually, with some prompting, they decide that she's no longer a contract employee, and they're gonna have to, and they're gonna pay her. They're gonna pay her back. But they should have known that from the beginning. You know, and this is a government that calls itself a Labour Party government. A Labour Party means you can look out for Labour. That's what your thing. These are more interested in capital. This should be the Barbados Capital Party, the Barbados Merchants Party, something like that. But certainly not a Barbados Labour Party, because they do not look out for Labour. They want this year. I've heard them saying the same tune that the employers are saying, that the Employment Rights Act should be amended because it's unfair to employers. It is not unfair to employers, but Minister CHEQUE under the last administration, if there is one thing that she can be praised for, there might be more, but this is the one that I will praise her for, is the introduction of the Employment Rights Act. She piloted that bill and put it on the books, the law books of Barbados, and it has assisted workers in a fundamental way. Because under the law, as it was before then, an employer could fire a person for any reason or for none, as long as you comply with the provisions of the contract. So you could be working for somebody for 20 years, 25 years, and then if a son come out of school, he looking for a job for that little boy, he said, we got a fella here, we can give you a job. And they tell you, well, you know, we can give you notice, a month's notice, and that's the end of it. You ain't get another cent. This piece of thing that CHEQUE put in place says that if you're going to do that, you got to pay. What's wrong with that? What do you want to change about that? What does the government want to change about that? What does Tony Moore, who one of the people who saying that the act needs changing, because she's saying the same thing as the Employers Confederation. The Employers Confederation is a union, but it's a union of employers. There's workers union, there's employers unions. The Barbados Confederation of the Barbados Employers Confederation is a trade union, and you have the Trade Union Confederation, the Barbados Workers Union and the Employers Confederation saying the same thing. Now, one of the other things that they're complaining about is they're saying that if you can dismiss some person, it is going to be unfair if you do not give the person a hearing and give them the right to be represented and give them the right to have a representative. So what do you want to change about that? They say it's unfair to the employer. All the employers have to do is to do the right thing. I'll give an example of the case that I had. It didn't even go as far as the tribunal because the person who represented the employer and myself, when I put my case, she said, Caswell, you got me. Because they just told the person, left my office, don't come back, you fired. In the end, I believe the person should have been fired, right? But we never got there. Because when I got there, I never knew what happened. I didn't know what was going on. I just came there because she said they told me to get. So I said, well, no, I'm quite busy, but I'll come with you. When I get there, when they said, well, we didn't do the right thing. We didn't give her a hearing. We didn't give she the right to be a right to appeal the decision. Then we give she a dismissal letter. So they agree that they will pay. Because they did the wrong thing. The Court of Appeal in Barbados says that if you dismiss somebody and you do not go through the correct steps, you that's the end of the matter. There's no question of you got the defense. You must do the right steps. I don't know why you're gonna change. Why do you want to change that? Make the employer do the right thing. mind you, and as a little bit of levity, you know, I'll tell you now that when we were at the meeting, the labor officer who was presiding over the meeting, she said, I would still like to see that video, you know. I said, what video? Because I didn't know there was a video at the time. And so people pull up the video, and I should have left at that point because they were in the case already. But I wanted to see the video too. And there it was, my client stealing. You know? But they had her on tape. So all they had to do was to follow the law and dismiss her. And they wouldn't have to pay a cent. You know, but mind you, that was the first time I got fired by a client, because she called me the next morning and said, Mr. Franklyn, I'm not so much interested in the money. I just want my name cleared. I just, sweetheart, we don't do magic. You know, I see you thieving. And she fired me. But, you know, but as I'm telling you, all you have to do is do the right thing. And that's all the legislation that Saku put in place was saying. Do the right thing. And now, if you're going to make people redundant, you have to have consultations. And there's certain so you just, like Bob, the people at BMC, you know, you were supposed to invite them to meetings, invite the representatives to meetings, and talk through the whole process with them. Or no, it doesn't. It is no longer severance pay. It is unfair dismissal, and unfair dismissal is you dismiss somebody contrary to the statute. That's all it is, you know. And if you will make the people redundant, if you have more than 9 years service, unfair dismissal, you get more money than for severance pay. So it was in their best interest to do the right thing. But a government entity, knowing full well for more than a year that they're going to shut BAMC, and what did they do? They wait till last minute and got people at Christmas and got the money. And you know, everybody like to look. We have a tradition in Barbados. If you hungry the whole week, is get a good meal on a Sunday. Not to tell them, because the people don't know that. You know, used to get a good meal, get rice and stew and chicken and all kind of stuff on a Sunday. If you don't get none less but soup and 2 dumplings during the week, you can get rice and stew on a Sunday. And for Christmas, you can get some ham and thing. That has been our tradition. You know, and if you like jug, more power to you. But these people went and deprived. This is the government of Barbadians, you know, who don't understand Barbados and Barbados, how Barbados operate. They send home people at Christmas, and they get them some people that celebrate after Christmas with the money. You know what it is to tell a little child, sweetheart, I ain't get paid for Christmas. The child don't want to know that. The child want to listen like the child down the road and the boy next door. That's devastating. But this is what government inflict, because they have to obey IMF dictates and deadlines. Could there? We did not elect the IMF. And when the IMF tell this government, we want you to do X in order to get our money, you will say, the government should say to them, but you know, we got some laws that we cannot do this because our laws don't allow us to do so. No, they implement it, they break the law, and then they would fight it. And that comes now, when they talk about fighting, now, courts. They have messed up the court system so badly. But there was always a little backlog here, backlog there. But when they want to get into gear, yeah, and have their cases going, you can get your case done in a couple of days. Because I know of a case with a man who stole a check for $7,500. And he stole it on the 19th of December. And by Thursday last week, he was in jail. You know what I mean? You know how many people go to court and have 5-6 years adjournments and stuff? But you can get, that's what there is no justice in Barbados. Justice must not only be done, but it must be seen to be done. I am not saying that that fella shouldn't go to jail. Mind you, I would give him a medal for exposing certain people. But a companion of honor or whatever it is, because he has now shown us that the only crooked politician in DONVILLE, and so what has happened there? He keeps going through the court and try fast. That don't happen in Barbados too regular. So, but the courts now are being used to make sure that nobody gets, the government, if the government can lose, the case don't come up. We've had election petitions or cases about elections that should have been done quickly. And to date, we are not seeing an outcome of those cases. I don't want to speak about myself so much, but I have a case going on before the court. I appealed the decision on a few grounds to make sure I appeal on time, but we need a transcript so that we can enlarge the appeal. The Court of Appeal has issued instructions to present the transcript. We go back to court 6 months later, the people don't give you none. So the Court of Appeal make the decision again, give them the transcript. The people body obeying the Court of Appeal. So when you have a system like that, and especially when you're suing the government, and the government and the courts give the government an order to do something, and the government refuses to do it, what is that saying about the state of law and order in this country? Right? Just think on it. If the government now refuses to obey the court, government is doing what it's like. All like no, we have cases and even the government take out your property. Government decides they're going to pay you in bonds. You can't carry a bond that popular and tell the cashier I want a few ramen and that kind of thing. You must pay people in legal tender. This government refused to follow the law and giving you bonds because the IMF says so. So who is running Barbados now? The IMF. I don't know if the same IMF ain't telling them to fix the potholes, or tell them that the only road in Husbands that not to fix is mine, because the only road here ain't got to fix is mine. Marcia. Every other road around this area has been prepared and got nice black tops and things. And mine is the only one that go ruggedy. Like I can't drive slow and come up. Don't really bother me. But it just shows you how they behave to allocate government resources to punish people. My problem is that this government cannot continue to disobey the laws that they put in place. Public Service Act. The Public Service Act, I'm going from one thing to the next. Public Service Act was passed by the Barbados Party administration in the dying days in 2008. I remember David Thompson walking, let them pass it by themselves. This act sets out certain provisions on how you must treat public officers. Are you aware that you have people in the public service working and the government paying them, or paying them only some of the money? I'm talking about prison officers. During COVID, you remember how a lot of prison officers locked down and stuff, had them working for 24 hours and that kind of thing, and then paying them. But it made a lot of noise, and eventually they get them $6,000. But even now that they have been released from prison, the prison officers released from prison, they have them working 12-hour shifts and only paying them for 8 hours for the last 3 years. And government refuses to do anything about it. That is one glaring example of the government treating workers very badly. Trust me, prison officers are working for 12 hours. The Public Service Act does not allow any head of department to change your hours of work. But they have done so, and they have given them 12-hour shifts. Now look what happens here as a prison officer. If he does not have transportation, he got to get work at 7 o'clock. You got to leave home for 5. I hope you get a 5 o'clock bus off. And then you got to travel, and then you got to get yourself up for 7 o'clock. So that means you got to left a little bit. If you got to leave home for 5, that means you got to be up for at least for 4. Work at the prison for 12 hours, and hopefully somebody come to relieve him, or you go hold on a little bit longer, and then he goes home. By the time you get home, his children sleeping. And next morning, he has to bump and go again. And not only the children sleeping, the wife sleeping. And next thing you know, if you're not careful, he will not only lose the money that he's supposed to get, he might lose the wife too, because you're coming home and the wife sleeping, you sleeping, and you can't do nothing. There you go. Recipe for divorce. But government does not care about workers. No. When they first joined the public service, when they first joined the unions, they had a survey done, and they tell you that back then, this was back in the 1980s, that nurses and police had the highest rate of divorce of all public servants. Why? Because the nurses worked nights and the husbands didn't. The policemen worked nights and the wives didn't. So a lot of divorce as a result of that kind of thing. And right now you are setting up a situation now for the things will be skewed now to prison officers. Because I remember representing the guy at the airport. He was happy at his job until somebody tell him, boy, you know, when you're at work, somebody home at you. And that man went berserk. Left the airport door open and all kind of things. Went across the shop and drink from and all kind of stuff. And this is another joke. I at the meeting, when they heard the case against him, and everybody was saying what a great employee he was, and how they don't understand how he's behaving like this, you know. I didn't know what to do on this case, because his boss was saying he was a great employee, but no, he come to this. I turned to him and I said, tell me something, you getting horn? And he said, you know, he might have got horn. We had a remarkable HR man. He was very tough. But he looked at me, he said, Mr. Franklyn, we don't need you anymore. He's not the first person to get horny. He's not going to be the last. We're going to deal with this. So he went along and he fell asleep his job. But, you know, that don't happen often, you know, because it's the latest thing you don't know to get him bring it forward. But he said, look, he's a remarkable for the working real good and thing. But the supervisor, they're off. He will go and do the supervisor work and stuff, you know, he get paid for it and stuff. And then all of a sudden, he just become a ridiculous employee. Something had to be wrong. So I because I've been around this place long enough, it's the only thing that got in my head. I said, tell me something, you get horn? And he says, you know, and when he couldn't answer that question other than mumbles, the chairman said, Mr. Franklyn, thank you, we don't need you anymore. He is not the first man to get horn. He's not going to be the last. We're going to deal with this. I still remember him for that. I mean, the HR man for that. We had a lot of tough battles, but this one, he had sympathy and empathy and everything. I don't know if he ever got horn too and he knew what it was, but he thing. But this government, not to be sidetracked, this government is not looking out for the best interests of civil servants. I went into the act a little bit, and I want to talk about the conditions. They were going to provide all these great things for workers. And every week, you hear some place closed down because of mold. Some place turned on because of fungus. Some place down to rat. Some place down because they didn't get clean and all kind of stuff. And only when there is pressure put on them, then they would start do something. But in the meantime, workers are working in conditions that's dangerous to their health, and they get sick. And when they get sick, the government refuses to pay them. And appointed public officers do not get national insurance, unemployment benefits, or sickness benefits. So you don't give them their salary, and they're not entitled to national insurance, what do you expect those people to do? And again, the prison is one of the biggest offenders in that regard, because you have prison officers who get sick on the job and for a lot of things, because you got people working 12 hours and then got to spend the next 3 hours to get home and then back their stuff for another 12. They can get sick. And when they get sick, you're telling them that they have overdrawn salary and they're people joking around and people money taking it out. And nobody is fixing it. Nobody is doing anything about it. The minister knows. I know the minister knows. You know? And the body isn't doing anything about it. They're treating workers very badly. On the other hand, they are employing people in the public service jobs, and calling them like, because if you're a temporary officer, you are still bound by the Public Service Act. So the minister can't hire you, but they're doing it. Ministers are getting jobs for people and getting a whole bunch of money. They're even employing contract crooks. We had that debate here. They bring people in, people who have criminal records, who have active criminal cases going on, and you bring them in as consultants and all kinds of stuff. And now we see what's happening, because those same consultants, they try to pay back some of the money to whoever to keep their job, and they are actually in place. And government is employing criminals. Mind you, now, if you were a public officer and you commit a crime, you could be dismissed. It's an offense for which you can be dismissed if you're a public officer. But they're going to pick up criminals and pay them out the government purse. So these are inconsistent things that this government is doing all like now. Now, even if you were a public officer and you had a criminal record and you didn't disclose it, then you get the job. Then they'll find out you're gone, you know. But you are hiring people that you know that have active cases. You know that got people who had long records, and you're giving them $8,000 in some cases, and then the fellas that the big criminals get $8,000 and the small criminals get $2,000. And you are telling me that it is against the law for a section of the public service, but not for these people? What is this government doing? But I always talk about this, and you have to forgive me, Marcia. They have associated themselves with the criminal element of society, and I know because when I first became a senator, I wanted to go and be proud, and I take my wife to Parliament. We open it because you see all the ladies coming in with their hats, and then I want my wife to get a big hat. I can buy a big hat for my wife and sit there and block with people too, like everybody else. And I asked for a thing for my wife, and they tell me no, that the men got enough space so they can't accommodate my wife. So I got there by myself. And then I go outside and I see the police quarreling that they got criminals inside here, drug dealers and stuff, that they get invited and my wife ain't get none. So this government has made sure that they take care of the criminal element. So when they tell people we can get the murders down, all they have to do is call their friends and say, look, start killing people. At least for a little bit. And we can use some money. So that's why the figures come down, you know, because they knew who they were. And they could go and identify them and say, well, look, man, making me look bad. Start killing people. And the fellas stop. You know, so if the government knows who the criminals are, tell the commissioner of police. Don't keep it a secret and get them work. Let me see, coming on my list. And that is, yep, I got rampant crime come down this list. But we're seeing it. Everything is going haywire when it comes to crime in Barbados. They laugh at David Thompson. Then David Thompson was talking about crime and violence. I know we got all kinds of crime and violence going on, and their way of controlling the crime and violence is to pay the criminals. Right? Excuse me, sorry about that. we have to deal with that. And we have to tell the government, if you can handle that job, go along and let somebody else do it. Because right now they're not doing a very good job. The other night, Marcy, you had a thing where you're asking from A to F. But even though you get A to F, you can still get a U. Because the files ain't show up. There's an ungraded, I can grade them. So I give them a U. Ungraded. So far. I don't think you can get less. Electricity. This bothers me a lot. Because they were going to bring down the cost of electricity, and so far, the only time electricity came down is after Kimar showed them up for a little bit. Remember last month after Kimar did his video, and they were ashamed because they are saying that the fuel adjustment charge, keeps going up and up and up, but it keeps going up and up and up when they're buying fuel cheaper. And Kimar was able to show that the fuel adjustment charge is the largest part of the bill. And they did a little thing for us, and thankfully, people of Barbados owe Kimar a debt of gratitude. They owe him a lot of debts of gratitude, and that was one. But what I want to concern myself with is the Utility Regulation Amendment Act that was recently passed. That act, but this is one that should go repealed just now. That act, it's a very short piece of legislation. It says, the minister may, on the recommendation of the commission or on his own initiative, exempt the supply of electricity from a renewable energy resource by a renewable energy producer from the application of all or any of the provisions of this act, where the minister is satisfied in all circumstances that the exemption is required in the public interest. Ralph Torn put paid to that. So I don't think I can be as eloquent as Ralph Torn, but just to tell you that public interest don't mean anything. But one of the things that bothered me is that Minister Abrams got up on the floor of the House and said that, I don't know, we're worried about that. The similar provision exists in the law already. I'm not going to read the similar provision for you, because people will tend to believe him if you don't bring this. The Utility Regulation Act, Section 37, that deals with exemptions. It says the minister may, on the recommendation of the commission or on his own initiative, exempt the utility service supplied by a service provider or part of that utility service from the application of all or any of the provisions of this act. This is the clincher. Where the minister is satisfied that the market for utility service supplied by the service provider is effectively competitive. So that is the clincher there. It must be competitive. So if you have people out there, the market is pretty competitive, you can let the market run itself. But you cannot have a situation where Emira is the only bread supplier ready, because everybody got passed through Emira. So if you then give Emira the opportunity, because they are not competitive, but the minister said, it's in the public interest. Next thing you know, they're going to be more red herrings. I'm not seeing a Pelosi here because she can remember her brother Wendell, who used to fight hard for these people. That is, he used to fight every time they had a red herring man. People, I got to know him from then. He used to fight. You wouldn't have that anymore. So when the minister said a similar provision exists, it isn't on all fours, because one is saying it's done in the public interest, and the other one is saying when the service is effectively competitive. So they actually go to Parliament and twist the truth as far as they can twist it without breaking it. That truth is so contorted, you can't recognize it. You can say, well, it's similar. Yeah, it's similar, almost the same words. But then the last few at the end says that it has to be effectively competitive. And in this case, now, this says if the minister determines it's in the public interest. Now, who is he? In some cases, who's the minister responsible for energy now? You think she knows what the public interest is? I don't. I sat with her in the Senate, and I used to be lost at what she was talking about most of the times. She had a clue. But I wanted to deal with that aspect, if nothing else, in the electricity service, because we have to make sure that you got to keep this government feet to the fire. Make sure that they know that we know that they're tricking me, or they're trying to trick us. Because, and you know what's happened? When that amendment came out, I got so many WhatsApp messages showing me people who want to be suppliers, who apply for licenses and who register companies and stuff. I mean, you look, the Prime Minister brother is one of them. You know, I'm not saying he's going to do anything wrong. I'm just saying that all of a sudden now you're going to make the business that he's going to be in the public interest, so they can charge with a like. Something is awfully wrong here. Barbados, we have never had a government that doesn't respect the people of this country to this extent. This government doesn't care anybody here. Just do what they want to do. And because they got 30 seats and they got nobody in the House to stand up to them, they're doing what they like. When Barbados, when the electorate of this country gave them 30 seats, they didn't realize that they were shooting themselves in the foot. And I think they knock off them better part of the tours right now. You're walking good? The next thing I'm going to talk here now is, yes, one of the things that I got from your friend Maxine was the NIS pensions. You know, they have been saying to us that they're going to give the yearly pensions increase to the national insurance people, and they didn't. And then they said that they announced that they were going to give a 4.5% increase. And people were happy because, you know, the public servants got a 4.5% increase, but then they carried it to 5. You know what happened? They actually gave them a 2.25%. That is, you know, you can't trust the word. Or is this that the IMF tell them, what do you think you're doing? You can't do that in my country? No, because IMF is running this place, you know. So even though they might have intended to do that, the IMF might have said, hell, no, you can't do that. We're not allowing you to do that. So we are in a situation now where we, the people of this country, are at the mercy of the IMF, and we are borrowing money. And they're walking about telling you now, with that borrowed money, that we are the 5th fastest growing economy in the world. Maxine, you know more about these things than me. How you just grow up on borrowed money? When you borrow money, you got to pay it back. That suggests growth. And especially if you are not taking that money and using it for productive purposes. I can understand if you take the money and use it for productive purposes. But I am not seeing where this money is going, other than in the provision of consultants. Where the consultant can then give you a $7,500 check. You know, well, let me say $8,000, because people might think you're talking about a specific case. Sorry, so I'm not talking about this specific case. I'm just talking about, that's the one that comes to my head. But where is this money going? Can you tell us what is happening? I don't understand why they're borrowing all this money. We are not seeing where it's going, and then they're going to borrow more. And they're borrowing more for all kinds of things under the sun: climate change, sewage water, you name it, they borrow money for it, and we are not seeing. When you borrow money, see, as an individual, you like to build a house or a car, but you buy these kind of substantial sums in your life. You want to build, you don't go and borrow $300,000 and then you spend it when the fellas down the road drinking rum and that kind of stuff. You want to build a house so that you will see what you got there in the end. So when you pay back that money, at least you got a house. And when you reach retirement age, your house can still be there, and then you left for your children, but at least you got some place to live. You don't got to go in the arms house. And that brings me now to arms house, because we don't call it arms house anymore. We call them district hospitals and that kind of stuff. This government is building a geriatric hospital on top of the water table, what do you call it, the aquifer in the bell. Why? The government has decided that those old people are on prime real estate and they shouldn't be there. Then we could build a convention center, because that geriatric hospital is earmarked for a convention center. Government headquarters, geriatric hospital, all those things along that line will vanish. I don't know if they're going to stop you from traveling that road too. When you get by the garrison, you got to turn and come down by the garrison and come across Culloden Road to get to town, because they can block you from coming down there too. Because they're making, I talk about the buses, they don't want their guests disturbed. And talking about the guests, I have not seen many guests going to the Hyatt. You know, the hotel there where the person was ran from. Yeah, you don't know, but because that was supposed to be finished this year. That was supposed to be finished this year. And so far, I have seen a fence and a couple of cement blocks. And they're rushed. That's what I tell you. You can't trust this government. I have no brief for Miss Ram. She is probably one of the third worst employers in Barbados, SANTIA being the worst. And so I don't have any brief for her. But what they did to her, they should not do to any citizen of this country. They took up her land and give it to somebody else to develop, and the body didn't develop it yet. But she forced her from, and the things they were doing it for Christmas sales, you know, when the Christmas sales were coming, they put her off at that point in time. You can't do that to people. I don't care if it's Miss Ram or Miss Sheik. You cannot do that to people. But the government don't care, and they will do it to you next. And when I said that, I said, look, people, when I spoke in the Senate about it, people said, oh, you defending Miss Ram? I said, no, I'm not. I'm defending the principle, because they're going to do it to somebody else. And then you know what they do? They decide they can do the same thing again up in St. Lawrence Gap. And then some people start to keep noising, but that's what they did to Miss Ram. And you said it was okay, you know. Remember? I say you did that. But you have to stand up for principle. Miss Ram, her employment record is not the best in Barbados. And as a trade unionist, I abhor some of her practices. But at the same time, you can't turn around and break the law to disadvantage her, and because what is your reason for doing so? Your reason for doing so is to intervene in the market and give her properties a property developer. Because this, again, the land was bought in the public interest, you know. What is that public interest? You see, public interest is so a public purpose, they call it. But what is that public purpose? Which public is going to get that money when this company builds a hotel there? That's not a public thing. They do these things because they can, and because they know that when you go to the courts in Barbados, that the courts will take forever. to get the job done. And I can tell you sometimes how this hide the case. But you go to court, right? You go to the registration department, you file a case. Your name is McLean. And they don't want your case come up. They'll file it by file number. So let's say your file number is 1004. And so when they come on 1003, your file will be next. But you have to go down about 200 something, or you never down there. It's still in the count, but I can find it because it's too far down. And your case will never come up because they can never find the files. That's what happens in this place. So I am very sorry, but this is what is happening in this country. The government has deceived the people of this country, and they're doing it every time. We have instances. I want to talk about the housing before I get too far. Let me think, because I think we get around the time. We want housing in Barbados. Everybody want a little house to put the family in. You get married and you find the love of your life, and you get children and raise a nice family. But I'm talking about regular family, because if you're married and you don't get you one of them alternate style, you don't get the children. But they're pushing that, so that's one thing that we could talk about. But they decided that they're in need, urgent need of housing. So rather than go to sources where we can get the emergency thing, you can almost get a barge and bring up as much green heart from Ghana as you like. They decided they can go to China and import steel houses. And you know what happened to those steel houses? A lot of steel in there. Lots. Yeah. And not a lot of steel in there. And this was supposed to be here in an emergency. I remember when the storm came and you wanted these things in emergency. So they brought them down, and they were supposed to go up fast. But they didn't show anybody how to put them up. So they stayed there on the ground, growing grass and all kind of vermin hiding inside them, because nobody knew how to assemble these jigsaw puzzles. These houses. Eventually, now you see some there where my office used to be on Park Road. I got a few there, but Lord, they take long. They take a few years, and that urgent need that could have been satisfied in weeks if you had gone to Guyana or Suriname to get the hardwood. So I am asking, why go to China? Who benefited from the importation of these steel frame houses? These steel houses, steel in there. I am convinced they got a lot of steel in there. So I want to know who benefited from all of that steel.
Wow, Mr. Franklin, you have presented. This is so. Listen. I am. I said we need to create a whole a poster with these with the deception. I think we need to just create a poster. It would, I don't know, we have to create several posters. But I know you had some final words you wanted to say there, Mr. Franklin. I think I cut you off from a thought, because we only have a couple minutes, and then I want to bring in.
I will talk about these things in other programs, but I want to talk about hospital.
Yes.
The Civ down and we call it Martin. It is the road down there by the hospital. Now that Civ, just below St. Michael's School. The accident emergency. I keep saying Civ, but I mean accident emergency. Because I saw a video of that place during the rain. It looks like there was nothing overhead to stop the rain from coming in. You bring your people, your consultants, and you think, and they couldn't build a folk up. And the place has got to know better. I went there. A family member was at the hospital. I had to go there. It took me 3 hours to bring him, because he wanted water. Would you believe that a person is in the accident emergency down inside, and he wanted water, and they couldn't get him to carry it for him, or they could get somebody to carry it for him. It's gotten as bad as that. I'm not talking about going in there and getting the doctor's treatment and that thing. I am talking about something as simple as water that they didn't have to give the patients. Just let that sink in for a little bit. If that doesn't shock you, nothing would. And I was upset with the gentleman. He was saying he went to his wife. He paid all this money, and he saved money to get his wife to go to Bayview because he knows that there's gonna be trouble. And then she had a little complication, so she had to come to QH. And now he out here 3 hours, and he can't handle. She carried to get the notes. I don't know if you missed the birth. The problem is that we do not know how to provide professional people to run our systems. It has to be a politician. So you will get politicians at every level because they are going to do your bidding as opposed to be doing it correctly. You get a politician to do the maintenance of a building, so the buildings always be sick. You get a politician to run the hospital, so it run it into the ground. Everything is going wrong. But and look, we got one hospital, one major hospital, or one general hospital in Barbados, and they're allowing that to fall into decay. What is going to happen with the people in this country? Because the private sector cannot provide health care for everybody. Yeah, you might have $7,500 that you can pay to go privately. But how about me that ain't getting none? I go to the hospital. And the hospital is starved of resources. But what they're not starved of are, and Rose talked about them, yeah, even though she was talking about education, communication specialists, and all kind of stuff. You want gauze. You want alcohol. You bring a communication specialist to do PR when people sick. You take care of the fundamental things first. You got to know what business you are in. I remember some years ago when Digicel came to the Caribbean. When they went to Jamaica, Digicel was handing out cell phones, so everybody won. You want to know why? Because they were selling airtime. They knew what business they were in. So they were giving away the phones because if you got a phone, you can put $5 on that $10 thing, and they get a little cheap phone that costs $5. And when that mash up, you get so used to having a phone, you're going to buy one. So you got to know what business you are in. And we're not in the business of providing jobs for politicians and communication specialists in every ministry in Barbados. That's what they have done. Every ministry have Ministry of Education got a communications advisor or specialist or whatever you're going to do what? We got a permanent set, we got a chief education officer. All the minister got to do is to tell the chief education officer, I give you permission to go and speak on this issue, because the chief education officer can't speak unless to get permission from the minister. So the minister don't give permission, but they bring a consultant who the chief education officer got a brief. So you're paying a big salary for somebody who can do the job, briefing the body who just being a talking head. Government does not care about the money that it receives from the people of this country. It don't care about the money that it borrows. All they care about is taking care of themselves and making their friends rich. And make your friends rich, you could use $7,500, Marcia. I could take a lot more. I wanted to talk about the road network and the potholes. I wanted to talk about the sanitation services, the collections, and even the facilities. They built a little facility at the place in Bagatelle where the stuff, the metal stuff and thing. A little place for the workers and a little office and thing, the floor dropping. But I didn't get a chance to talk about that.
But you know what we're going to do, Mr. Franklin? From what I'm seeing here, we're not done with this review yet. We are far from done with this review, and because each person is being so comprehensive, which is good. And we started out the show, Miss McLean, talking about the reason why we do it. And you could have seen it today. It is a love of country. And I just want to review a couple of things before you jump in. And then I'm going to bring in our Dr. Ferdinand Nichols, who is seeming to be much better. We're so happy to see him. But we're going to get to you soon, sir. But let's just review some of the things. And if I've missed anything, Miss McLean, you were here from beginning, and those who are watching can go ahead and just correct me if I've missed anything. Deception number one that Mr. Franklin talked about was the denial that the NIS and pension reform was IMF inspired. Deception number two, he spoke about that an NIS would now become a statutory board, which he said that it was already made a statutory board, right? Deception number three, Barbados National Day to replace Independence Day. We were told that it would not. Deception number four, the Trident ID now being made mandatory when we were told that it would not be. Deception number five, government said that they would decrease VAT and sewage tax. We are still paying the same rate. Deception number six, UWI fees will be fully paid by the government. That was a campaign promise, and it is still not being done up to this year. In fact, in some instances, they have been asked to pay more. If I'm incorrect, somebody can correct me, please. Deception number seven, making government employees contract workers to avoid paying NIS. Yeah, and that's a deception as well, because they're thinking that, you're contract workers, but really and truly, they are regular employees, as the case with Rachel, who fell in the well, and they've now had, because they were challenged on it. And that's what this show is about. Deception number eight, courts are supposed to be just. However, government seems to be using it to protect themselves. And we saw it with the different cases that Mr. Franklin presented. We're looking at broken laws. And I think the courts thing could have gone under broken laws as well. The Public Service Act, where prison workers and other public servants are being unjustly treated by government, and where they're working 12-hour shifts and not being able to take care of their families, and we don't want certain things happening in families, okay? Broken laws. Number two, Workers Public Service Act again, which I think we need a whole show to educate people on this Public Service Act. I think that's something that the Marty Reed Show should do in the 2024. Workers are working in conditions that are dangerous to their health. That's something to be concerned about. Yeah. And then there is a deception number 9. Utility Regulation Amendment Act is not in the public interest. That's important. The deception number 10 is that the promised increase to workers were reduced. I forgot which workers specifically that they were, but somebody could let me know. You could send me a message and I will update it. Because we want to capture all of these so that we can put this all on one document. All right? So that people could go fact check them. Deception number 11, Barbados is the 5th growing economy in the world. Right? That was a true deception, because we went and it's nowhere on the internet. In fact, we weren't even mentioned in the top 20. Broken promises, QAH, because they've made all these promises to us about, doing things in the best interest of the public, and that they're going to take care of the public and so on, and the QAH. But the QAH is a sieve, as Mr. Franklin says. The rain pours in at will regularly, and it's totally mismanagement, starved of resources. Okay, those are the points that we were able to capture. I'm going to ask Ms. McLean to take a few minutes and to comment on some of what Mr. Franklin has so very comprehensively put before us. Very good job, Mr. Franklin.
Yes, and I want to add my voice to the thank you for doing that. Just a couple correct well comment well correction. I think the mention at the last one of the last points, I think it was number 10, related to a promise to increase pensions, if I remember
Pension.
correctly, from 4 to 4 by 4.25%, I think it was, and the
4.5.
increase actually was 2.25, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
4.5. So it wasn't salaries, but I think I believe that Caswell could have gone off as long as he spoke, raising a number of other issues, because even if he amplified some of those, and I just want to touch on something. He mentioned the public service and contract workers, and he was talking about lower end, unskilled, the asphalt workers and so on, who were, unskilled, lower paid. But there's another dimension which I think is going to create a series of problems going forward, and Caswell could flag this for future discussion, and that is the issuing of contracts to positions, senior positions in the
Yeah.
public service, and for example, positions in at the level of permanent secretary or equivalent kinds of grades, because you're talking about a person receiving. I'll use the example because I know there was a lot of discussion about this with the chief agricultural officer. And one of the questions that I asked, because somebody was brought in from the outside, um, and there was a concern raised. And my question to some people in the public service was, did persons apply for the position, senior officers, because you had a number of persons in the ministry who probably had the qualifications. Now, if I put myself in the position of one of those persons, why would I apply for a position where I had a career path? I'm a couple of years away from retirement, and if I take a contract, what happens? So the point I'm making is that there are a number of decisions that are being taken, and the full ramifications of those things are not fully fleshed out, and it has implications for creating major challenges or problems in the public service. Now, overall, when I listen to these things, how I can sum them up, and this is for the gentleman who says we never say anything positive, or we don't have persons who speak to that. For me, my background is management, as you know. And for me, when I look at a lot of how decisions are being taken, it makes me question, from a management perspective, from the style of manager, how has cabinet, because the prime minister heads cabinet, and decisions have to go through that process, whether it is legislation to be taken to the House of Assembly and later to the Senate, how have they been making decisions that you can have so many major blunders? Because I am going to be kind and say blunders, because I would hate to think that some of these things are, well, in some cases, where as we see things being brought in under the radar, as you mentioned, the very first thing, the national insurance amendment, that was done in a way that, to my mind, I call it stealth, because you are making changes where the public was preoccupied with crop over and the 2 weekend public holidays and so on. But outside of that, where you've seen legislation that has been badly written, or, well, I don't even want to say badly written, but there be major errors, because it makes me wonder the quality of management decision making. The Japanese traditionally have had a practice of saying that they take a long time to make their decisions, but when a decision goes through, because they make sure and dot their I's and cross their T's, do their consulting. And I don't mean consulting as hiring consultant, do their discussions and deliberations. Let me use that word. So that when you come to a particular policy or program, you have worked out the kinks, you've thought through all the possible problems, etc. So for me, it really makes me wonder, whether or not the quality of input, whether it is at the level of the public officer or the level of cabinet colleagues, is there. And it brings me to a promise that was made. We heard the prime minister, and she loves to use slogans which are catchy, and we remember them. Many hands make light work, but what we seem to have is a case of too many cooks spoil the broth. And this is it. I mean, because we have all of these ministers. I mean, and we have 30 members of parliament. The entire house is Barbados Labour Party, but we have almost as many of them being ministers or ministers of or ministers in, parliamentary secretaries, and so on. So everybody is almost as part of cabinet, which means that there is a large pool of decision makers. And on top of that large pool of decision makers chosen from the House of Assembly and a few from the Senate, we have consultants. If you go to BIDC, you have a ton of consultants. I asked about a program called Future Barbados, where they brought in all these young people and they're being paid $6,000 and $8,000 a month. You go to social policy. I understand. I listen to Minister Kurt Humphrey sometimes justifying why Kimar Safri, and I called the name because it was in the media, would have been brought in as a consultant. I don't know. I don't think he's doing it pro bono or, for nothing. So you have this plethora of people, and lots of money being spent. And as the question was asked by Caswell, we borrowed all of this money. I think last night, Kimar was addressing the whole question of the borrowing and the implications of that. But we are not seeing two things. One, where that money is going, and a program to generate the level of public revenue, especially the generation of foreign exchange, to help us prepare, moratorium or not. And in fact, with a moratorium, the borrowing figures keep rising. How we can service this debt? So, I tell people it's okay to say that we are being critical, but we're being critical because there are so many questions that have to be answered, so many issues that have to be explained, so that Barbadians have a proper appreciation of what exactly is the picture that we have to paint. What exactly is the situation that we are facing down the road? Because it is frightening. And in addition to the fact that we're not, our traditional sectors are not doing as well as we would hope. We often hear that we can't operate on one leg, which is tourism. How are we buttressing that with other opportunities? I mean, Caswell mentioned agriculture. I believe agriculture is, I've mentioned it previously. I heard the Prime Minister talk about, and the Minister of Agriculture repeating after her, because they often cite the Prime Minister when they speak of issues, about the construction of some facility for handling produce coming in from overseas. But how we can pay for it? Guyana doesn't accept Barbados dollars as payments. Suriname is not going to accept Barbados dollars. We got to pay in foreign exchange. In addition to that, we have very large operations, retail operations, where Barbadians are consumers. It's good to go and look on the supermarket shelf, if that's where you are, to see aloe water coming from Korea. But when you read the label, it refers to a variety of aloe that has its origins in Barbados, So I'm hearing all of this. Caswell, I think he referred to it, but he didn't speak to it. As far as I'm concerned, the medicinal marijuana plans are dead. We have go and look at what's happened in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Look at what is happening. So all of that, I think that the train they missed the train. Well, when you say the bus, we don't have trains in Barbados anymore. But so I listen to all of this, and my concern is that I am not hearing anything of substance. I hear a lot of pretty words, and I make no apology for saying this, from the CEO of what used to be the Barbados Investment Development Corporation, BRADSHAW. I think it's now called Export Barbados. And as somebody who likes to keep it simple, and as I said, I understand something about business, and when I listen to the gentleman, I hear a lot of buzzwords, a lot of fancy talk, labels put on things. They have a lot of consultants. But tell me, in relation to this year, for example, what tangible results have you been able to generate in terms of exports? As I said, I hear new labels, and people like to use the word the space. This is part of the new buzzwords, the technology space, and I'm not one to use a lot of buzzwords. I guess, but the point I'm making is the other side to the borrowing and the spending is the generation of revenues, whether it's taxation from successful businesses or whatever the case may be. People export and they're able to get payments in foreign exchange coming into our banking system and so on. I'm not seeing that. And it's not being reported, because if we check, we hear, and I refer to Export Barbados as an example. I remember hearing the CEO and some other people speaking about a percentage increase in exports, but they didn't tell me whether it constituted $100,000 increase or 100 million. So
Okay.
I think that's very important, that we
Yes.
need to see that other side, because in doing this review, it leaves me even more perplexed
Yes.
about where we're going in the short, medium, and long term, to really buffer and to balance it out, the equation. I know a little bit of accounting. We look on one side of the balance sheet, what's happening on the other side.
Yeah. Yes.
That is what is
Thank
frightening.
you. Thank you so much, Ms. McLean. I want to welcome His Excellency Reverend Dr. Ferdinand Nichols. That's his full title, y'all. And another one who's done some tremendous work here in Barbados. Miss, before, I know you want to comment on CASWELL's presentation, but I want to ask this because I advertised it, and I want to ask because you run a charity, a church, and for years, and you're a person of ethics, etc. And I want to ask you, do you see any similarities with what occurred with DONVILLE INNIS, what's the allegations against DONVILLE INNIS, and the allegations, or the what it seems to look like, because we don't know what the real truth is. What it seems to the appearance of what's happening with the Deputy Prime Minister at this time. Do you see any similarities and any differences, Reverend?
Well, good evening to everybody. Good evening, Caswell. Good evening, Maxine. And good evening, Marcia. Let me just say it's a real joy to be with you. I didn't expect to be able to make it, to be honest with you, because of some issues I've been having vocally. I saw Square 4 mention something about me singing at my old church, but obviously they missed the singing Christmas tree. So if they were there, they would have actually heard me at the old church. Before I answer your question, Marcia, just let me say that I want to endorse, because I have been listening to the program for the entire evening, and I just want to endorse a couple of things that Maxine said about this show and about yourself, and the tenacity and the capacity that you have exhibited over the past year to stick to a task that I believe very few people would have taken on. And So I just want to share the sentiments that Maxine would have expressed, and to congratulate you from where I sit, for a tremendous effort on your part through this show. Not for the sake of pushing yourself up, but for the sake of educating people in Barbados and in opening up their eyes to the realities of what is happening in the country. And let me also say, before I answer that question, and I'm not going to miss it, that what we are dealing with in Barbados at the moment, in my view, is a very serious eradication, or should I say, an ongoing serious eradication of trust. Trust is extremely
Eradication of what? I missed the last
Trust.
word.
Trust.
Trust.
trust. TRUST, trust. It all began, and I know we won't be addressing certain subjects in this platform because of what has transpired before, so I won't even venture to that. But it began a few years ago, when we had to deal with certain global issues, that we found ourselves as people who elected a government compromising, or our government compromising our national values and our liberties under the guise of a certain number of things, and I'll just leave it at that. In terms of the matter that addresses the Deputy Prime Minister, I want to say that this is, for me, a very personal challenge. And the reason I say that is because I had a mother that worked very closely with Santia's father, and taught in his school. Actually, I think headed his school at one time, if my memory serves me correctly. And so it becomes a very challenging, emotional issue to have to address it. But I will say it this way. I remember my introduction to politics, and Caswell, you would probably recall this, and I'm sure Maxine would have been well into politics when I was a child. I think I give away a couple of years to you. So, um, okay. Are you picking me up? Okay, you guys are getting me right, because I've seen a
Yes,
comment there.
You're
Yeah,
correct.
Okay,
we're hearing you.
because
It's just sometimes the last words, because of your throat. I think that's
yeah,
the issue.
okay,
Yeah.
because I'm not using the headpiece from the phone. I'm using a microphone actually.
Oh.
But I remember, Caswell, you would recall that it was the showing of a series of checks in 1976
Yeah.
that
Sandy
cost
Brother
the
Allen.
then government the elections. I don't know if Maxine will recall
Sandy
that.
Brother Allen.
Yes. And I listened very carefully also to the last show. I think it was, if my mind serves me correctly, Marcia, was last night. I listened to that show too, which again I felt was very detailed. I'm not even going to try to follow in Caswell's footsteps. That's the truth. His presentation has been so detailed and brilliant that it would be a failure of an attempt to me to try to follow Caswell. Not much I could even add or deal with, because he's pretty well dealt with the majority of things I would have addressed, and he has dealt with them in such detail, that's incredible. But what I understand from what I believe you shared, Caswell, was the matter of the law. And to me, I remember some years ago when I worked with BMW, we had a situation where one of the guys who wanted to purchase one of our vehicles, which could only accommodate 4 people, but he wanted to do it under an HL license, not under a taxi license. And the HL regulations called for 5 persons, the driver and 4 individuals. But our limousine could only accommodate the driver and 3. And myself, my colleague at the time, now passed away, Johnny Tudor, and the gentleman went to see the minister. I believe it was Ronald Marshall at the time. And we went to see him. And sitting in that meeting was a gentleman whose name I will not call. But he was the technical person in the ministry, in the ministry that covered the licenses and so on. Ministry of Transport and Works, I think it was called at the time. And after having gone through all that we had to go through with the regulations and so forth, it was becoming apparent that the minister was prepared to, because of the type of vehicle we were dealing with, he was prepared to maybe give an exception. And I would never forget what that gentleman said. He turned to the minister and he said, "Mr. Minister, the law is the law." That was exactly how he put it. The law is the law. In other words, there can be no exceptions. The law is the law. If that is the case, the law is the law. And it's now left to see what the law will do, what investigations will occur, and if the allegations are correct, then the law is the law. And I would say that knowing her father, if there is a question concerning her credibility and integrity, then it would be necessary for her to do the right thing. And I will just leave it at that. But it's a challenging aspect for me because of the very close, and to be honest with you, it's challenging having to deal with the Barbados Labour Party under these conditions, knowing that my family has been an extended, and Caswell, you know this, my entire family has been involved with the Barbados Labour Party from the time I can remember myself. My mother sat on the national executive with Tom Adams, and she was one of the people strongly behind the
with me.
And exactly, and she was one of the people who recommended Owen Arthur in St. Peter. She stood firmly behind so many things. My sister was a career diplomat for the government in Toronto, Canada, vice consul, I believe, to Toronto at one stage. My brother would have run for the Barbados Labour Party, the only person who had the guts at the time to come up against Errol Barrow in the, I think that would have been the 86 elections or something like that. I don't recall. We have a long history of the Labour Party. And so for me now to have to sit here and treat to the Barbados Labour Party in this way makes me feel that it's not the party that I used to know. I made a couple of notes as people were speaking, and I wanted to say, and I think, Maxine, you encapsulated it as well, but I made a note this way. It is difficult to identify the good things that the government has achieved when one is faced with such an overwhelming plethora of negatives. It's hard to find the good things that they have done. And I would like to probably begin by making a couple of comments, a couple of things. I joined this show at your invitation, Marcia, and I felt the need to do it because I was very concerned with the direction Barbados was taking when it came to matters of gender identity. And it came to a headway with me when the comprehensive sexuality education scandal was exposed in our primary schools. And I wondered how in the name of God could the Inter-American Development Bank implement a educational process in our schools and the Ministry of Education not be aware of it. And that, to me, was the first thing that, in my mind, should have called for the resignation of the Minister of Education, because it would have been a dereliction of duty to my mind. Because Maxine mentions about management, and Maxine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, it goes to the head of the stream. When something happens in a company, the employers don't get fired, the CEO and the managers get fired. When you screw up and mess up, the top people get fired for messing up the company's portfolio and bringing failure to the company's productivity, etc. And, to have gone through that entire debacle and nothing whatsoever was done, that's the first thing that sent up red flags for me and began to show to me that this government is increasingly devoid of transparency and accountability. The second thing that happened, I don't know if you all would recall, but there was this issue to do with the bathrooms at a school in St. Philip.
Yes.
That the Minister of Education denied that there are any such same-sex bathrooms in any of the schools in Barbados. And yet the same cameras that went to St. Philip with her, when they scanned the area, you could have seen clearly on camera the sign up for the same-sex capability on a door. And then we have the pictures taken by parents and students. And again, nothing was done. There was no accountability, no sanctioning, absolutely no explanations. Nothing was forthcoming. Just an arrogant, obnoxious Minister of Education. Now, I don't know the lady. I don't know how well Caswell may know her. I don't know how well Maxine may know her. But I find her to be an obnoxious, arrogant individual who is not prepared to accept responsibility for anything that she does when it's wrong. And I was extremely annoyed within the context of that. Then the third thing I wanted to point out, which probably I should have begun with, was the elections of 2022, held in the midst of a state of emergency, held in the midst of a pandemic, knowing that you had over 50,000 people who were eligible to vote that could not vote unless special provision was made for those individuals to vote. And Maxine, I have always respected your political views, because I've always seen you a bit like how I view my sister, being a person who considers values more than your political connections. And you know, when I looked at, because I don't know if you remember that it was about the same time the Bahamas had elections.
Yes.
And the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, I don't recall his name right now, he made provision for every single quarantined individual to vote in that election. And I asked myself the question, why could something similar not have been done here in Barbados? Especially when we are given the fact that in many of our constituencies, sometimes it's only a couple of votes that can determine whether the Barbados Labour Party gets a seat or the Democratic Labour Party gets a seat. I think you'll remember, Caswell, the situation in St. Peter some years ago with Sybil Leacock, I think it was. Sybil Leacock with one vote or two votes or something like that. You know, so here we have an election called during a pandemic, during a state of emergency. Now, I don't know the legality of that or the constitutionality of that. I don't know, because in my lifetime, I have never been through a state of emergency. That was the first time I had ever encountered anything called a state of emergency. But I felt that it was a deliberate act to deny a large percentage of the Barbadian public who were eligible for election the right to vote. And I believe the information has borne that out, in that we now have a government that has been elected to office with the smallest percentage of the electorate ever in the history of Barbados. So that is the third thing I wanted to touch on. The illegitimacy of the general election, the thousands of Barbadians that were denied. And then we have the matter of recent days of the Samoa Agreement. And everything was proceeding along really nice and dandy till it was raised here. You will recall, Caswell, it was raised here on this show. And we brought it up because in that agreement, even though the government repeatedly denied, remember the Minister of Foreign Affairs denying it. I remember the representative for St. James North getting up and talking most disingenuously concerning members of this show, persons who were on this show. And then I remember the Prime Minister herself threatening us, and I took it personally, threatening us with this whole aspect of treasonous conduct or conversation or whatever, denying the fact that there was a connection between the agreement, the signing of the agreement, and sexual orientation, gender identity, sexual health, and those matters. And they tried to explain it away by referring to I don't recall how the Minister of State and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated it now, but putting it out as though, there are agreements, but people have, different ways of treating to them, and there was no obligation on the government of Barbados' part to embrace the European Union's view on sexual orientation and gender identity. But then, we heard the matter, or should I say, but then we never got explanation from the government as to what is their definition of sexual health, what is their definition of, or what is their view with regards to sexual education in our primary schools and so on. We never heard a definitive statement with regards to that. Then I can move on to another thing very quickly, and that is you touched on it, or should I say you didn't touch on it, you dealt with it quite well, I thought, and that's the matter of the national debt. And again, Maxine, you addressed that again. My mother always used to tell me you can't borrow yourself out of debt. That was what my mom told me all the time. If you keep borrowing money to get yourself out of debt, all you do, Freddie, is dig a deeper hole of debt. And so what she said to me is that if you want to get out of debt, you're going to have to increase your income. You're going to have to look for a job that makes you more money, so that if you have to borrow more money to consolidate your loans, that's what I was taught. Maxine, I don't know if I am right. I'm not a financial guru by any stretch of the imagination. But my mother used to talk to us about consolidating debt so that you could probably reduce the amount of monthly payment, but she made it clear you had to up your income. You had to increase your income. The challenge I have is that I now have grandchildren, 6 of them. And we are now 73. Let me make sure I get the figure correct. I think as of this year, we are somewhere in the ballpark of $73 billion US in debt. I think it's somewhere in that ballpark. I stand to be corrected. I think it's 73. Is it 73 or 7.3 billion? Kimar had it out there. I think it might be 7.3 billion US dollars in debt. But anyhow, I'm sure Kamar will clarify and correct me if necessary. But regardless of the amount, the fact of the matter is that we keep borrowing money. Every time I open the newspapers, all I see is that we are borrowing. And we are being told that our foreign reserves are good. But our foreign reserves are being made up from, particularly what Kamar has educated me in, is being made up from the money we are borrowing and not from the income we are generating. And I agree with you, Maxine. I know, I think I know the CEO of Export Barbados reasonably well. He's supposed to be a minister as well. I don't mean a minister of government. I mean a minister of religion. And we have always had good relationship and good conversation. But I am challenged to see, where is Barbados earning, thank you so much, 7.33 billion US dollars. Where is Barbados earning the income to pay the debt? And if we're not earning income to pay the debt, what does that say to us for the future of Barbados? And I'm really very, very concerned. I won't say worried, because as a Christian minister, I shouldn't be worried, because the Bible cautions me to be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication to let God know my requests. And believe you me, we have been praying for this country in and out. Maxine and Caswell, we have a group that meets 5 days a week, 5 o'clock to 6:30. We pray nonstop for the well-being of this country. And I don't ever intend to stop, because I believe that the answer to this nation lies squarely in our values and belief systems, which have to supersede our political connections. And I actually made the note here on my paper, morals and values versus politics, because I believe this is where we are at right now. We have to decide whether we are going to follow values and morals or follow politics. We have to make that decision. Just let me run down through here. And then, of course, we had the matter of the Child Protection Bill, which again, let me before I even touch it, let me just slip back to the Trident ID card. You remember when this Trident ID card, Caswell, was discussed? The Attorney General came out in either October or November and said that Barbadians did not have to take this ID card. As a matter of fact, at the very beginning, we were told we had to. We were told that at the very beginning. Then it seemed to drop into the arena of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, which I couldn't fathom how it got into that as a national ID card, how it got onto the portfolio of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. But we were told we had to get this new card, and people were lining up to try and get the card. Then the Attorney General comes out and tells us that it's not necessary for us to get the ID card, and that was a statement, plain and straightforward. Am I correct, or am I wrong?
You're going back to the 100 before.
He said it straight. Within a couple of weeks, the Prime Minister came out and said we have to get the national ID card, and that the national ID card would not have to be pinned. I remember these statements very clearly, because the issue that is being raised with the national ID card is not the ID card aspect. It is the pinning of the ID card aspect. And people don't seem to grasp what's going down here. Because when you pin a card, even when you pin your bank card, what you are doing is through that little piece of plastic, you're giving the bank authorization to your account in every way, shape, or form. People need to read the fine print. When they're getting these cards, they come with a connection on them that tells you what the bank's rights are and what your rights are. And I realize that very few people read anything to do with what is on those, what is required when you have a card. And as an automotive person, I can tell you, most of the time people don't read nothing they get. You know how many people drove back into Warren's Motors with their BMWs to me and tell me that the car don't have this, the car don't. And I asked them, have you read the manual? They said, no. I said, well, how do you expect to know what the car has if you haven't read the manual? You know, there were people who came back in and didn't know that if you press the unlock button on a BMW that you could lower all four windows at the same time. And they were telling me that you could do that with Mercedes, but BMW didn't have it. But BMW was the first luxury brand to have it. But they didn't read the manual. And sometimes we go get these cards and we activate them. We don't even know what the rights of the bank are. And so here we are now, being asked to pin an ID card and not even being told when you pin it, what are the ramifications of pinning that card? It's almost like it is a secret. And then the Prime Minister comes out now to create even more confusion. She comes out now and says that, and sorry, the minister, is it Minister Ishmael something?
Yeah. Davidson Ishmael.
Davidson Ishmael. You remember he came out and said, or he was trying to put a lie to our idea that you can't track the card, you can't track using the card. Yet in the same breath, he could speak of tracking the movement of the elderly on the buses to be able to know how, when when they're moving most of the time. If you can't track using the card, you can't track, period. If you can track the movement of the elders, it means the card can be tracked. It's as simple as that. And as a matter of fact, we're now told that the elderly cannot use the card on the bus unless it is pinned. And it is the pinning that makes it possible to track the movements of the individual with that card. And you're going to tell me that it can't be tracked? How ludicrous can you be? And then the Prime Minister comes out and talks about the fact that there are variations of services for those that are pinned and a variation of services, a differentiation of services for those that are not pinned. So which is it? Exactly what is it? And it therefore it's not homegrown. That's the bottom line. It's not homegrown. And there are a lot of things about this ID card that do not relate to us as a people in Barbados. A lot of things. Go and talk with Australia. United States has already said it ain't happening in America. They're not permitting it in the United States. Australia is pushing back against it. The UK is pushing back against it themselves. So obviously there are questions surrounding this matter of the ID card when a country like the United States is not going to embrace it and endorse it, but Barbados ready to grab it and hold it to their bosom as if it is life itself. And let me just end then by speaking to the matter of the Child Protection Bill. I am not a very detailed person in these. I tend to, get a overview. That's why I was so appreciative of what Maxine shared this evening and what Caswell shared, because they're very detailed. And I really have been so appreciative, and thank you all for helping me to learn and understand so much of what is involved in all of this. Let me end by the matter of the Child Protection Bill. And I wouldn't even venture to get into detail on this because I believe from an attorney's standpoint, we have had a couple of attorneys address this. But clearly the Child Protection Bill, there are questions that are up in the air to be answered. And I believe a lot of this has to do with this sexual orientation and gender identity agenda that is being pushed across the world, led by the United States, pushed into the European Union, and now trying to be pressed upon all of the countries of the world. And I'm grateful for countries in Africa that are simply saying, no, can't work here, can't do here in our countries. So I'm really, here again, you have the government trying to, I call it, I like the word Maxine used, stealth. I don't know what caused her to use that one, but stealth. You're trying to get this sexual orientation and gender identity acceptance in through the back door with this Overseas Employment Act or whatever it is, so that now you're opening up the country to what they call them again, Caswell, not same-sex couples. They have a different name for it, so that it did not intrude upon our demeanor. But it's the same thing, and it's coming in through the back door, being slipped in at a time we are.
You're punning.
Oh, okay. So I am. Sorry.
I said Caswell. No, you go ahead. Sorry. Let me mute until I'm ready to speak.
So I mean, these. When I look, therefore, Marcia had asked me. When I look at the performance of the government down through the year, I went to school at Harrison College, and down through the year, we used to get something called. I can't remember what they used to call it, Caswell, but there were cards. I think you're a Combamere, and I don't know if I had the same process at Combamere, but we were a little more advanced than you all were. But anyhow, so we used to get this card that every certain number of weeks, it would be completed, and I had to bring it home and show it to my mother. And my mother had to sign it. This came in before we got our report card at the end of the year. And those cards would carry grade from A to F, and A plus and C minus. You remember all those things? If I had to grade the government at the moment, I would have to grade them with an F minus. And I think if you got an F on your report card, my mother being an educator, my backside was warmed emphatically. And Maxine, this is why I grew not to like Mercedes-Benz and to have a preference for BMW, because my mother had a long strap, piece of leather, straight on one end, serrated on the other, and she called it the Mercedes. And I got a lot of those Mercedes. So maybe that is why I have an affinity to BMW and objection to Mercedes. All right, so that's really my view at this point, Marcia. I didn't even expect it to be that long because I wasn't sure that my voice could have survived it. I tried preaching this morning on my virtual service, and it was really a massive challenge. But I said I had to push through to be here with you tonight, and to be able to say to you and Maxine and Caswell, Kimar, we wish all of you and all of our official opposition, a happy new year and a prosperous 2024 for all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Marcia,
you
could
so much. I was muted. Thank you so much, Reverend. Thank you. I wasn't on screen for all of it, but I was listening. I had to take care of something here. But as this is not the normal time that we have our show, but again, very well researched, and I thank you for taking the
Thank
time.
you.
It's a strain on your voice, and you still have service and all of that at your church, and you came here this evening, and we appreciate you, Reverend.
Thank
I
you.
was talking about you when you weren't here, that when I'm away, I know I can leave you to
Thank
moderate
you.
the program for me. And I've traveled and come back, and it's still going and growing as well. And thank you for doing a fabulous job with that. The opposition appreciates you and appreciate what you do. God bless you.
And
And
I just want to say what a pleasure and an honor it has been for me down through the past year to be able to support you and help you in that way. I look forward to an exciting 2024 as we take on what is in the best interest of the people of Barbados.
I like that. I like that. The best interest of the people of Barbados. As we are going to be wrapping up now. We've gone past time, but I want to say to the opposition, the loyal opposition that have stuck with this show all from the time we started. I want to ask you though, can people give a grade to the government? What grade? You've heard we've made 3 days of presentation to you, and we still have more to go, right? But so far, based on what you've heard, what grade would you give the government? Remember, we had Mr. Gittens, who there are many of the youth initiatives that he thought that they were going very well for the government, that these were very good. We heard from Jonathan, another young person who's in the trenches, and he reviewed just the behavior of young people and what's happening. Sorry. Can you all look at the chat? I can't put it up.
I know, I know. I'm watching it too.
No, I can't.
Yeah, some you can put, some you can put up, others you can't,
Steve
because
Moore.
I've never seen that grade ever, not in all my school
No, I
history.
never see that grade.
Marcia, you have to share that one with me later because
Oh, dear me.
Steve Moore. Steve Moore is watching on Facebook, and he gave the government a grade I can't even put up, but it's hilarious.
Oh dear me. Oh
But
dear me.
people are giving them grade G. Somebody said they give them grade G, mean get out.
Oh dear me.
Oh Lord, no, Steve Moore, in all fairness, he has given them a 10.
You all have me crying.
But then when he thought about it some more, well, are you seeing it? Look at
Oh,
612.
oh,
612.
I will
oh,
look at it later. I will look
I
at
don't
it
know. I
later.
don't know if
okay.
you're seeing it. I have to take a picture because it's hilarious.
No, no,
After Steve Moore,
I am on the streaming thing. I can't see
yeah.
that. But
After
Uh,
Steve Moore thought about it. Then he decided. Let me send it to Caswell in case he missing it. Right after Steve Moore saw it,
oh dear me.
thought about it some more. He decided to add another grade that we didn't
Yeah.
we didn't ask him for that, but he decided to do that. But anyway, um, okay. So I'm looking. So what grade would you give? Come on, guys. What grade?
I see somebody is giving the grade IMF.
IMF.
I thought the lowest grade you could have got was F, but this is the I and a M. I didn't know that. Oh my dear.
I explained that earlier. When you don't show up, you should get a U.
you,
ungraded.
Ungraded. Outstanding failure.
Yeah, somebody says a minus F.
Oh,
But
Rather F minus.
F minus, F minus,
I
yeah.
said to put minus F by saying that's probably lower than
Yeah.
F minus. I don't know.
But on a serious note, I mean, the truth is, how I feel about it, then the people is that there are some good ideas that have been there, and the problem with them is one is implementation, is usually the issue. One of the issues that they have a problem implementing good ideas. I remembered there was a time when I thought that they were really going to diversify the economy, and where agriculture was going to be a big thing, and then they just kind of just switched and just went back, with all these slogans and all these different things, and went head into tourism, and with no diversification really. Um, there's some things that they have done. I like some of the things in the education reform as well, but the problem with it is that they are building on like there's no foundation, so we don't even know where, like this. They have a lot in the education reform about technology, and I think that is the way to go. But the foundation is so shaky. There's going to be a problem with the implementation of it. It's like everything that they're doing. It's like, what happened at Springer. It's a good idea to
That
have,
makes
to do, what do they call it again? Not a test, but remind me, what's the term?
um, it was a what do they
A
call it?
drill, a
A
drill.
drill.
In case, it's an all-girls school, in case, somebody comes into the school to hurt the children.
It's how it was done. Yes.
Look at the implementation, and that's a good example of this government. This government has a problem, a major problem with implementation. There's some other issues, but that's a major problem. It's always some issue with it. So I wouldn't say that all the ideas. It would not be fair to say all the ideas that have been put on the on is bad. It's like the prime minister. Let me just say this. I think it is a situation where Barbadians, put their trust and their hope in this individual, who has some skills are there, a great orator, and I have to give her A for that. I believe she's a great orator. I know others, and
Snake
here.
oil, snake oil salesmen are usually good orators as well.
I know Caswell don't agree, but I think she is not only a great orator, but I think the prime minister has a great presence as well. So as a leader, when she comes in the room,
Large presence.
she makes a statement, and that's good for a leader. I think that is important. The Prime Minister Mia Motley carries a very powerful presence, and she's a great orator. I love the fact that I believe Miss Motley is the kind of person who could work a room. I'm being honest. I
hmm
believe she could
yes,
network well, and she
I've
could
seen it.
work.
I've seen it happen. I've seen
Yeah,
her
yes,
she could work a
yes.
room. I
You
think
can't.
let me just go down in record. I know Caswell don't agree with me with some of these things, but just hear me out. I think she has the ability to work a room, to network, which is what we are seeing happening on the world stage. The challenge is that we are not seeing the benefits in Barbados. So,
Right.
um,
Right.
take for example Usain Bolt and Shelley and Fraser Price. I'm Jamaican, so I'll talk about them. They are able to go, overseas, and their presence promotes Jamaica, and Jamaica will tell you that they see it's corresponding to their tourism numbers. Jamaica is winning up a lot of awards, and doing very well in tourism. We can see the correlation between Shelley and Fraser Price, Usain Bolt, and all of them, what they did in athletics. Let's take that as an example. We see Shaggy. Shaggy is singing, and he in the backup. He always have, all the Jamaicans. They have a little flag because they're promoting the country, and we see the benefit of that. Our prime minister travels the globe. She networks. She is a good networker. She is a globe trotter. She is what I did. I went to Poland. I am just a little me. I went to Poland, 30 something countries there representing Barbados, and I was able to bring back people here to have a whole workshop on issues of gender and so on. The big question that I have from somebody that is so talented in terms of oratory, in terms of networking, in terms of having that presence, you know, where is the benefit to Barbados? We're not seeing that. Our tourism is like, we saw it the other night, Miss McLean showed us negative 12 point something percent below standards. When tourism is our number one, um, you know, um, uh, um, industry. So I think that is where something is not adding up, Miss Notley. Something is not adding up somewhere. You are traveling, but we're not seeing any benefits of it in here for ourselves, and that's the problem. So I think I would say that Barbados have lost, they've lost hope in this leadership. They've lost hope in Miss Motley. They gave her twice because they had hope. She had promised. She had promised to them. She had promised, regardless of what we think, but Barbadians have lost hope in this process. She has not delivered. That's my 2 cents. Okay. I don't know who's Miss Motley, Miss McLean. You were saying something.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say that to me, part of the problem, because you talked about implementation, but before that stage, I think I like to ask a very basic question when I'm dealing with matters, and that is, what problem are we trying to solve, right? And as you mentioned, in terms of what we've heard about educational reform, there's some issues there that make sense. But then we see a proposal without having full details about essentially, not changes, but reform, which suggests what I call a root and branch. They're pulling up everything and trying to replace it. Now, that is one thing. And I promised to link it because I also looked at a comment from Easy D, who said no mention of gender or sexual orientation. But if you start to look at some issues, I will show where within the international agenda these things come into what is being spoken of here. But what I think is the problem, and this is my interpretation, the Prime Minister does have a positive presence internationally. And I am asking the question, have has Barbados, through the Prime Minister or any other spokesperson, the truth is we don't see a lot of other ministers dealing with these matters. Has the Prime Minister offered Barbados as a what I will call a lab, an experiment, because we are small? Are we saying to the world we can test some of these things? Because when we look at the educational reform, um, yes, we know we have issues. What are we doing in relation to slow learners and a whole set of things that we can solve without having to upturn everything, if you see what I mean? But are we saying to people, whether it is that or I ran upstairs at once to get my 2 IDs because I want to say something quickly about the 2 IDs. Are we saying to those other countries and philanthropists who are pushing certain things that we can probably try this out in Barbados because Barbados is small and we can, so in other words, rather than say it was it XQ, I think is the entity that's supposed to provide funding for 2 schools, rather than do what they say they're doing, and I will come back to this another time, that they are providing resources to experiment on new methods in schools, not school systems, because what we're talking about is a rooting and changing of the school system. They're doing, call it experimentation for want of better, financing, innovation, and testing out of ideas in individual schools. But we have offered up, or we are proposing to make changes in our entire school when we talk about middle school and all of these things. So my interpretation is that perhaps somebody has said, Barbados is sufficiently small that you can turn the whole system around or upside down. But of course, if you do that and it works, it doesn't work, we're in trouble. Um, so that is one. Now, when we look at the ID again, now I went purposely to find my two IDs because I did get this one, and I recall that the original one, this is a laminated piece of card that anybody with a piece of plastic and so on can make this, open it, and so on. So for me, an ID that looks like this, just like our driver's licenses went from a paper book that nobody accepted to this, is fine. Because when I look at it, it says Barbados ID, it has my national ID card. I looked at the information. However, I am not pinning it because I have this as I had this as an ID card. So when you are going to tell me no, but of course, if you're going to try to force me to pin it because you want me to access certain services, that is where Barbadians have to stand up and say, no, do we need to have that, and why? Especially when you have information. Remember what happened with the voters list when it was put up on because it said it had to be published and somebody put it online and so on. So for me, my biggest problem is that we are running after ideas. And I am not sure that they're running after ideas, but then these ideas are not run by sufficient stakeholders to sit down and assess them to determine whether or not they make sense. My concern is when we start to be, and I think there's this adrenaline rush that somebody seems to be getting from being able to say Barbados was one of the first, but we can also do colossal damage to a whole set of things if we get it wrong. And this whole notion of pinning this card and making available, I mean, because you have on the back of here, you have what they call this thing, QR code for capacity on here, and go and read the challenges with having these things. You know, pinning, as I told the woman, why am I going to pin a card and next week can't remember what the pin is, and having, and not needing it. So I think part of what we are seeing is a rush by the powers that be and the prime minister, from all that I'm hearing, because she's the main spokesperson on most of everything, to be out there ahead of other countries without really thinking through the consequences of failure. And based on how we're doing things, and we've had to reset and restart and go on and come back, and as the Calypsonian say, took one step forward and two steps, and in this case, maybe 10 steps backward, we run the risk of messing up the lives of Barbadians big time. Let us deal with the issues, as you said. There's need for change in our education system. I would even say reform. But I would like, for example, for the government to present me with a document which captures all of that, what they're trying to do, showing me what problems they're solving, what it's going to cost, how it's going to improve on that, what are the downsides if we mess up. But no, we just getting half-baked ideas. And that cannot fly. The risk of damage on so many levels is huge. And if they don't understand, and the problem I have is that nobody seems to want to stand up. Well, very few people. And I'm talking about in official capacities where decisions are being taken, to say, look, we'll come again, stick a pin, stop. Let us evaluate.
Yeah.
This makes sense. Is it worth the effort? What, you're going to talk about changing the system. And I heard Dr. Denny carrying on. I mean, I really was embarrassed, because here was somebody who I thought understood education and had years of experience saying, well, we don't know what it costs, but we will borrow wherever we got to borrow. That's madness. What are we borrowing to do? What are the problems? Look at them. It isn't about throwing money, lots of money. It is about utilizing resources efficiently and effectively in a way that is going to minimize the cost of doing it, but maximize the benefits, reduce the potential of fallout, etc. But all of these grandiose ideas sound good. And I can't even say on paper, they sound good because I just say your sound bites. But give me the documents, let us peruse them. And I will say this. My former colleague, Minister Jones, has presented the Ministry of Education with two documents, and I can tell you one is over 120 pages long, based on his experience of being a teacher, being a president of the Barbados Union of Teachers, being a parent of a school age child and being the Minister of Education for 10 years. And in
Yeah.
looking at that document, I can get permission from him to share it. You would see that he's tackled a lot of issues that will revolutionize education without turning the thing upside down and getting into things that we know nothing about middle school and whatever else. Things that
Yeah.
sound fancy, but
Yeah.
really and truly are alien to what we have. But I could go on, Marcy, but I needed
Yeah.
to say that.
But I
Yeah.
tell you, I had a mind this was going longer today, but we will finish up soon. Mr. Franklin, someone just sent me something here, and I'm just going to be careful on how I read it, right? But I wanted to comment on it because I think that you have been, you know, talking to us about this, right? It says here, I'm going to change how it's read. One member of parliament was allegedly charged with rape, right? Has rape allegations. Um, it is alleged or the perceived that there's another MP that is now taking kickbacks. That's the perception to onlookers. It is said that one of our MP's personal assistant, their son was charged with murder. This is all the same government. Listen, Barbados, listen, right? It is now said that there is another MP whose daughter is now the allegation is that they're going to be there's some allegation of some drugs issue. And the person wrote, that is no party but a gang with the boss with the boss at the helm, right? And saying that party is likened. This is what they're not saying it is, but it is likened to some Gambino family. I am just like stunned. It's the end of the year, and it's almost like and so I tell you, it feels like God is fighting these people. All of this exposure and all of these things start to happen. Today's the last day of the year. What are your thoughts about that? And I want you. I know this it might upset Miss McLean a little bit, but we do that if that happens on the show. Is to do you really think that what the perception of what occurred, that said the perception of what occurred with the deputy PM and this check gate is a check gate, this situation here. Do you see any similarities and any differences with the allegations being leveled that were leveled at um, Innis, Mr. Innis? Yeah.
Yes, there's only one difference, and that is that Donville Innis's thing was that he took the money overseas. Now, if according to U.S. law, if you got that money illegally in Barbados and you transport it to the United States, you have committed a crime out there. But it must first have been done illegally in Barbados first. So the only difference is now that she did not send hers overseas. But the fellow took it before it got there. Um, so that's the only difference. Because from what it looks like to me, she as a minister received money that she was not entitled to receive. That is why you pay her the big bucks, to make sure that they don't get their hands on other things. Because if you do not pay people well, they will find ways to get other money. And it looks as though she found a way. Now, she comes and she says that this is a charitable donation. It does not make sense to me from my experience. And the PR piece that was done in the nation does not help her cause, because for people who know the system, they would know what the nation is saying does not make sense. I'll tell you why. Having done that charitable thing for years, you do not wait until the 20th, 21st, 22nd to go out there and buy the hampers. So that check was stolen around the 19th and presented to the bank on the 20th. If that was for buying hampers, food hampers for the people, that money would have already been cashed and converted into groceries and whatever else you can buy for other people. So that does not cut it with me. It looks as though it is a bribe. She has to say to us what it really is. It is not. What she said is come back again with another story. But what concerns me is that we operate under what they call the Westminster system. It is breaking down all over the world, not even at Westminster. But when allegations, serious allegations of fraud, corruption, even lying to Parliament were made under the Westminster system, the person was made to resign. You either resign, right, you jump, or you get pushed. But you had to go. Now we have the first instance where the guy was charged with rape. He was charged with rape. It's not an allegation. He was charged with rape. That's not an allegation. The allegation is that he committed a rape. That's the allegation. But the fact is that he was charged. He was charged with committing a rape. That was enough to be out of Parliament, because you should not have that kind of tarnish on an honourable member. Even if he had asked for leave to defend himself, but you don't stay in the house and you don't stay in your post.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we have a system that I always tell people is a parody of the Westminster system. We had in one case in England, I can't remember the guy's name, but it'll come back to me. He had a mistress, and he said to Parliament, no, he didn't, to the House, that he didn't have a mistress. And when they found out, he had to go, and that was just a mistress, you know. But of course, you can't come and tell the House, oh yes, I have a mistress, you know. So that was a lie that you could have forgiven him for, you know, expose those kind of things. But the fact that he had one and lied about it, not that he had one, that he lied about it, was enough for him to be excluded from Parliament. But in Barbados, you can do the worst thing. You can lie to the people. You can deceive people. Maxine was talking about earlier where she give me the documents and let me read them. You go to Parliament, I don't give you the documents. I get there and the documents are handed to me just before the debate starts, because they don't want you to understand and know what is going on. Everything is done by stealth, you know, and or through the back door, as Freddie was saying.
Well, I think people are saying, and it's something to think about when you put it all together. I know Miss McLean has a comment there, but I think when you put it all together, Mr. Franklin, it seems as though there is a lot of darkness happening within this with some of the people within the government, and when you put it together, it just seems concentrated. And
looks like sleaze.
Yes, it looks like sleaze.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Sleaze.
Yeah.
I know Dr. Ferdinand would want to comment, but let me go to Miss McLean, and we're going to close the show on this, please. Go ahead.
I just want quickly to say something about the recent one. I will speak about DONVILLE at another point in time, but the current administration made heavy weather of that situation and went to Parliament to make legislation integrity in public life bill. Now, having done that, I would expect that, and having seen what happened to a former MP and minister, I would expect that people would be on their P's and Q's, and I could share comments from a member of this administration later, or I allude to that. But Part 5 of the legislation says it requires every specified person in public life who receives a gift worth more than $2,500 to report that fact to the commission, or in the case of a member or senior officer of the commission, to the president, for determination as to whether the gift is a personal or official one, and requires the person in public life to deliver any gift that is not personal to the Minister of Finance. Now, we heard that this might not have been what was it you called it, proclaimed, that it was that's the word, that it was not proclaimed. That's not the issue. If you have taken the position that this is what is going to happen, I certainly would have abided by that and be very cautious. So first of all, it's 3 times the figure that is here. And therefore, even if it were for that purpose, and in fact, because of this, I would say to the person, do not write a check to me. So I think that there's a difference between the two, but I will come back one day to speak. I know Caswell and I will have different opinions on this. The reality is parliamentarians have always been given monies from organizations. Now, to protect yourself, people set up entities or whatever, or have persons dealing with charitable whatever, because even though they get an allowance, the kind of things that they do probably exceeds that, and that happens. So let's say that it was intended for that purpose. It is explained. So in other words, if it went to the Minister of Finance, then it might have been disbursed in a particular way. I don't know, because we need to then discuss how the Minister of Finance deals with those funds, whether they're rejected or whatever the case may be. But the key point I'm making is that this administration, looking on at what transpired, decided that it was important to put this legislation in place. And having done that, you have a person in the name of Deputy Prime Minister and sometimes Acting Prime Minister, who is working in a ministry where lots of contracts are awarded, doing something like this. And as Caswell said, and I wouldn't repeat, if you're preparing for hampers and so on, people start buying items from 2 and 3 months out, earlier than Christmas. So I don't buy, as they say, to explain is to expose. And I think that on the basis of that, it does not make sense. But I will say more in a future time, because I want to really analyze what transpired previously from the perspective of Barbados. And then we can talk about America.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Reverend, I know you spoke already about Ms. Bradshaw, but then I was talking about the combination of everything. One MP being charged for rape, the allegations against him. Then it's alleged that there's another MP whose son is now charged for murder. That's an allegation.
Not an MP, not an MP, and a personal assistant. Personal assistant.
Sorry, a personal assistant to someone in government. That person is a person. Oh my God, the son of a personal assistant. So everything, and now the allegation is this is a daughter of an MP that is being has these allegations about drug trafficking. It's the same party. It's the same people in government. As a minister, what how does that make you feel? You're a Barbadian, but you're also a man of the cloth.
Well, no, not too much cloth, but it's concerning, because there's a certain level of integrity that is required in public life, Marcia. Our young people, I listened to the program last night. You had on a brilliant young man, and he spoke about how young people look up to certain persons in public life for an example. And what we are fundamentally doing here is that we're saying to our youth, do as I say, but not as I do. And youth have never accepted that as a position. That, I mean, even in my day, we never accepted that. So what we have today is very concerning, where those persons we expect to carry a certain level of integrity are compromising it on an ongoing basis. And that is troubling, because then it's easy to wonder what's going to happen in the future. We talk about reduction of crime and all of this, but yet Caswell can sit here and point out specific things from leaderships in our country, from political examples in our country, and it's troubling. It is very, very troubling. And I know sometimes the church gets a lot of licks in terms of even things like this, but I wonder how many of us would be prepared to give the same type of licks to members of political parties and persons who are involved in political life. And I just want to end by saying this. You are so correct, not only in terms of this matter, Marcia, but in terms of our overall perspective on a global level where Barbados fits. There's all the World Health Organization, all the ID card, all the World Economic Forum. All of these things are being put together and being placed upon different countries. But our leadership is not telling us, and they're not explaining, and they're not telling us why. But it's a coming together of all of these things if we are expecting to obtain funding. The bottom line is money. That's the
Yeah,
bottom line
it all
for
comes
all of
together.
us.
We are
Yes.
going to do a show with you, Dr. Ferdinand, but it's going to be on Rumble. We do have lined up some persons who have gone through some injuries, and so
Yes. Yes.
we're gonna do it on Rumble because that's a review as well that needs to be done. And so
Yes.
we're going to
Yes.
do it, but not on this platform.
No.
Um,
No. 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 No.
as per usual, Mr. I always do it general. I know you just spoke, but I always give you the final word before we head off to enjoy. Don't drink too much, don't drink too drunk.
Well, I think this is one night I'm going to miss my being with my grandkids at the Hilton fireworks display because wisdom says I need to stay home and rest.
Oh, well.
Yes,
You
I'm
know, well,
hoping they do one here at Sam Lord's because I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving home.
Well, from here in St. George, we can watch all of them.
Yes, that's lovely. That's
well,
lovely.
I want to wish everybody a very happy new year, even the government. And if you celebrate, I want you to be careful. If you drink, I want you to make sure you don't drink too much.
And have a
And if you can drink
designated
too
driver.
much, drink it and have somebody to drive you.
Yes.
Because I do not want to hear tomorrow that there are any fatalities as a result of your celebrations and fatalities.
I'm going to bring a drink for you as
That
well.
sounds good. I myself, I do not celebrate because and that's a historical thing with me because as a little boy, I remember, the old men in the district said they were going to watch out the old year and watching the new. I was about 7 years old. I didn't know what that was. So I thought there was something spectacular that was going to happen. So I was 7. Give me a break. So I can't keep my eyes open, but I stayed up by the shop steps and now waiting for watch up the old and watching the new. And then at midnight, one of the old guy said, "Boys, it's midnight. Happy New Year." And I ain't seen nothing, not a blue flash, nothing. I said, that's all it is. And that has broken my spirit from then till now. I don't get excited, but I was looking. I was 7 years old.
That's why you don't drink alcohol?
No, I don't drink alcohol because I grew up 2 doors from a rum shop, and I saw what happened there. So
Oh, dearie.
so I don't get excited by it. But for those who do, enjoy yourselves. Enjoy yourselves to the fullest. I'm happy for you, and come out refreshed next year and do the right thing.
That's right. Do the right thing.
Good night, and God bless you all.
God bless
you,
you.
everybody.
Love you all.
Good night. God bless you. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
We see you on Wednesday. No show tomorrow. If anything, if you see something, it's a recorded show, okay? But no live show tomorrow. Family time. And we will start back on Wednesday. God bless you. Thank you, my
Bye-bye.
wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Yes,
Such a
happy
great
New Year to
show.
all.
Almost 500 people on and locked on.
Wow.
Up to now, 450 still here. Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. God bless
Great.
you. We love you all. We love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.